Dark Cabinet. Ono Tadashi is outraged that in the 21st century people are still printing such terrible documents. The clock's hand shows it's already late. He worries he may miss the last train home. About to leave, he pauses and turns to the computer screen, where a beautiful picture of nature makes him imagine how the village's quiet, peaceful life would please him. A little sad at first, he suddenly remembers the train and says that if he doesn't hurry, he won't get home today. Suddenly boxes of papers fall on him. It cries out in surprise and swears. The whole shelf falls down onto it. Staring at his blood, he quietly resents being the only one working overtime today and knows that if he calls for help, no one will come. At the computer, he looks up and says he will miss the last train. Trying to call someone, he realizes asking for help is pointless because he is not a tenant. Looking at the picture on the computer, he admires the village fields and says it looks like the end as his vision slowly darkens. Tadashi wakes in an unfamiliar place where someone calls him a lost soul, sees a beautiful girl who greets him, tells him he is in the Avesta, and introduces herself as Arya, the goddess of the beginning, while Tadashi asks to wait. The goddess explains the main character has no idea what's happening now, and that they brought him to the world of Esther after he died on Earth, and Tadashi realizes he's dead, says so, and thinks his death was stupid. Surprised by the scenery, he looks around and wonders if this is heaven, but then remembers she was talking about another world. The goddess tells him he can be reborn and start over in another world, and Tadashi wonders again. The goddess confirms this is a chance to live life a second time. His soul is very pure, so they should bless him. She calls to the gods to answer her summons. Gods appear before the main character. Arya tells him these are her family, the 12 gods of the Avesta, and that he can choose a god to receive a blessing. He studies them, noting how different they are, then suddenly notices the old man. The main character approaches his grandfather in a hat, asks for forgiveness, then turns to him, and the grandfather repeats his question before saying he is Kronos, the god of agriculture, and the main character, looking at his grandfather, asks again. The old man turns away sharply, says he will say no more, and urges the young man to leave. Grandpa is certain the young man will call forestry too boring and say it is not worth choosing such a blessing for a new life in another world. He also recommends choosing the god Helcabalt or the goddess of wisdom Mia to become a hero. Grandfather says sages are now popular and powerful, and that with her blessing the young man could use magic, but he refuses and says he prefers farming even if it sounds strange. Surprised, the old man asks if the other man is serious and if he is sure he heard him correctly. The man says he has always wanted to spend the rest of his life in a quiet village and that the blessing of the god of agriculture is the perfect fit. Rampas still cannot believe it and stammers as he asks if he really wants to choose it, then says that if he wants to become an artisan the volcano would suit him better, and the man asks Kronos what he will give. The god of agriculture is glad he asked and says agriculture, as a living thing, is more than plowing fields, forestry, fishing, animal husbandry, brewing, cooking, and processing, and the list goes on. The protagonist says he will put himself in his care. I call him Mr. Kronos. Grandpa begins to cry. Surprised, the man asks if Grandpa is crying at his words. Grandpa says he cannot help crying because it has been 10,000 years since the world was created. 2024 people have arrived here, and he is the first to take up farming. The man asks if that is true. God realizes he hasn't asked the man's name yet. The main character says his name is Ono Tadashi. Grandpa says it's a great name. Still surprised by the man, he says doubtfully that being reborn to start farming is odd. Not hiding his surprise, he insists the man will not regret his choice later. Then he turns to Arya, and the goddess asks what it is. Grandfather says he will no longer have that opportunity, but he makes one final request at the cost of his life. He asks her to transfer all his powers to Ono Tadashi, and the goddess says she understood him. Grandpa turns to Dashi and says he will give Dashi all his strength. A glow suddenly appears. The main character asks what has appeared on his hand. They tell him it means he has been chosen as the savior of the world. He studies the hand where the mark appeared. It is the 7-star blessing of the god of agriculture. A voice calls to old Kronos, telling him to wait. The god of heroes and Mia, the goddess of wisdom, stand there as Mia asks him to explain himself and declares he has gone mad. Giving 7 stars to a person is against the rules. The grandfather asks why she took it and urges her to search for it herself. He also asks what the rules are. The god of heroes says he doesn't mind, but people have always been given a maximum of 5 stars. Mia supports him, saying that even for agriculture it is forbidden to give a person 7 stars, and that the laws of this world cannot be violated, so Mrs. Arya will not accept it. The main character turns to Arya and asks if that is accurate. Furious, the old man tells me to shut up and listen to him. Grandpa tells her to shut her mouth and says agriculture is the basis of human life. Arya urges them to listen and says there are reasons for everything, and Arya turns to the goddess of wisdom and says the world is on the brink of destruction. In this case, she says the Avastar is waiting for the end. Mia looks confused and does not know how to respond. Arya says the world there is underdeveloped, most people are still fighting over territory, and hunger and poverty are widespread. Then she asks Mia how many people she has blessed since 2024, and Mia replies about 533, at least that's her estimate. Then she turns to Helcabalt, states he has blessed at least 800 people, asks why he doubts her, and the god of heroes answers affirmatively. Arya says that, with rare exceptions, at least 4 people became dragons after receiving the blessing of the god of monsters, and Oda reports 24 demon lords under the patronage of Diabel, the demon god, plus 6 blacksmiths gifted by Vulcan. Arya says he was the first to choose the god of agriculture, and since his abilities are not for combat, the 7 stars will not make him a god of battle. She says more food in the world is better for him. Mia says she doesn't care how many times Mysaria explains it and still won't accept it. Turning to the man with displeasure, she says he is Ono Tadashi. The main character responds positively and then wonders what comes next. The girl asks why he won't pick one of them now, saying he has a great soul and deserves more than farming, and the god of agriculture is outraged while she wants to know what the problem is. Kronos turns to Mia and Helcabalt, then stops and says that before he forgets, because the main character needs tools he has to ask Vulcan for help. Grandpa says he already gave Tadashi his blessing, so he can vouch for him. Mia, outraged, asks him what he thinks he is. The god of agriculture declares he is the world's hope and says the monsters are too strong, warning that even with his blessing Tadashi would be weak in battle because one blessing is not enough. Mia objects, saying you cannot receive multiple blessings and that no one has ever had blessings from several gods. The old man says she's very petty and that he must fight to survive in the Avesta, turns to the god of heroes and asks him to agree because it's all to save the world, and the god apologizes and says no. The god of agriculture falls at his feet. The man is surprised and says gods should not kneel before one another. The old man pleads that he is too weak and this is the only thing he can give, Tadashi. Privately, Helk thinks Kronos has gone too far. Cronus, the god of heroes, hesitantly agrees and raises his head, and Helcabalt says the hero will receive a single blessing from Cronus, exactly 1 star. Then Cronus asks the main character for his hand, and the glow appears again. Next he turns to Vulcan and says it's his turn. Vulcan says he agrees with Kronos but cannot even give 1 star, asks what is wrong with him and then looks to Tadashi, who thinks he is very low and responds positively. He explains that when the gods give a blessing, they strengthen their own faith by taking from the person who chose them and so must take it. In return, the main character apologizes and says he has no money, which surprises Vulcan, who laughs heartily and tells Kronos the man is funny. Vulcan explains the fee is not money and can be collected later, and for example it could be a simple sanctuary or an altar, and the man realizes it should be a place of worship. The god of blacksmithing says he prefers fine alcohol and tasty food, and adds that he was the first to take up farming, and the main character thanks Vulcan warmly and turns with his back to him to the god of heroes to ask what he wants. He says he does not want to give his blessing. Tadashi says he can take it back if he wants. He says he is well-mannered and should forget about it. I thought it was a simple gift, and in the end he adds that the main thing is not to blacken his heart. The goddess of the beginning addresses the main character and asks if he is ready, and he answers yes and thanks her. Arya tells him to keep the god's blessing in the mortal world, then smiles and wishes him a happy life, surprising the main character before snapping her fingers. The main character is in a cloud, with trees visible and screaming loudly, and a second later he lands on the ground. Stunned, the main character shouts that he does not know where he is and discovers he is in the middle of a desert called Avesta, the Limbo subcontinent. Pernuz lands here from above and congratulates the main character. The main character turns to him questioningly. The old man says he will give a brief update now. The main character says he doesn't even know where he is, and the old man scans the landscape, naming mountains, rivers, forest, and plains, before saying it doesn't matter where they are because everything a household needs is here. Dashi realizes the air here is clean and thinks he had wanted to farm in a quiet town, never expecting to end up in a deserted wilderness. He's glad he can finally do what he's always wanted to do. Still, he wonders why he has to start from nothing. The old man explains it's because this is the only place untouched by people. In other words, every country charges a substantial tax on this kind of activity. The main character is surprised because he hadn't realized another world could have taxes too. The old man warns that if he still wants to go to that country, he will have to make huge concessions to the aristocracy and endure their humiliation. The younger man tells him to continue the briefing. For the first time, the main character realizes that in this fantasy world, the gods themselves reveal every map of their realm. Farmers here are very poor, and because of taxes, they barely have enough to live on. Some might call this a test of the gods, but I know it is not. The old man says all the countries in the world are mired in war and corruption, that he alone can save them, and that he does not want the young man to endure the worst the world has to offer. And the main character says the old man is very kind and thanks him sincerely. The passage asks God to tell us whether these lands are truly uninhabited, and says this subcontinent is called Limbo, considered rejected from God's blessing. Tools break easily on the local stones, because the stones and trees here are harder than iron. The river is filled with deadly poison instead of water. The old man says no one can live here. Outraged, the main character demands to know how he will live here under those conditions. The grandfather, irritated, tells him to listen to the rest, saying these lands were rejected by the gods, and that is why everything is so bad here, but he is blessed by the god of agriculture and has 7-star power. The main character asks how to use the power, and the old man tells him to dip his hands in the river first, so he reacts with outrage and asks again. He reaches toward the water. I realize this is the poisonous river. Light appears and the water becomes safe to drink. The old man says you can drink now. The main character is surprised but agrees. The old man says his blessing can purify any water, and the man is happy and grateful. God says it is too early to thank him, and that when his body came to this world, he became 20 again. God adds that the man no longer fears injury or illness. The main character says he now understands why he has felt light in his body since the moment he arrived. The god of agriculture offers a small parting gift to the man. The old man glances at the young man. When Dashi asks what it is, Grandpa says it is his magic bag and an ideal item for farming because it has unlimited storage inside that is unaffected by time, so even the produce will not rot. Someone asks if the main character can definitely be taken. The old man says it's okay if you ignore that he took it from the treasury without permission, and another man says you can't do that. God tells him not to worry because he will ask her for forgiveness later. God adds that it is her fault for not giving him a blessing. Let him pay with artifacts. The man says he will do everything to forgive the old man and asks him to tell her what kind of offering she wants. The old man says not to worry, and that when she is angry, it is better not to touch her at all. God asks them to continue their conversation, clarifies that the main character understood purified water can be drunk, and the old man says they can move on because they now need food. He tells the man he can even store water in the bag and urges him to scoop some. God praises him when he puts water in the bag and says that until he finds clay and can make dishes, he will have to live like this. Pouring water from the bag, the main character says how the temporary dishes will hold up, then suddenly notices something. Suddenly a fish swims into his bag, leaving him stunned as he calls out in surprise, and stuttering a little, asks what it was and tries to confirm it was a fish. And the old man says that's great, congratulates him on his first catch, and says the food is already there. His grandfather urges him to walk through the leafless forest and look for anything useful. He picks up a branch. The protagonist is surprised to discover the trees are magical and truly made of iron. The old man asks if he has found anything. Tadashi replies, surprised, saying the blessing even lets him understand the local plants. The old man says that is natural given his level of analysis. The only thing he doesn't understand is the purpose of Alicia's herb. The god of agriculture says he's lucky and explains the herb is top grade and named for Alicia, the goddess of healing, but Alicia shouldn't be here, so the god doesn't know how the man found her. The old man assumes she sees them and helps them. The man says he will thank her and plant the grass as soon as he has free time. His grandfather praises him for his kindness. Grandfather asks what they will plant right here and says they must first cultivate the soil. A man works on something behind his back. Grandfather turns, sees he has made a work tool, and praises him for the clever idea. The young man admits it almost looks like what he wanted, saying he meant to make a shovel but ended up with a hoe, and the old man comforts him, calling it a great start for farming from scratch, saying the goal is set and urging the hero to begin working with all his heart. Convinced this is his first swing of the instrument on this earth, Tadashi begins counting to himself as the hoe strikes the ground with a loud thud. A large area of the earth is splitting apart. The god of agriculture is stunned and speaks in confusion, and the man reacts with embarrassment. Again the old man shouts. The man asks what happened. The old man is utterly astonished. The old man tells him to ask the other man what he just did. Tadashi says the old man told him to put his whole heart and soul into the case. Tadashi followed that advice. God grunts and asks if something is wrong. The old man picks up a handful of earth and thinks the man has not only cultivated the land, but also made it more fertile. The old man admits he does not know and says no one has ever received the blessing of the god of agriculture, and that his own powers are not enough to do that for a person. God suggests the main character caused it himself and adds that human desire can work wonders. Words about human desires. An image from the past appeared before the protagonist. The same screensaver on the computer showed a scene of nature. The main character says he's always wanted to do something like this. The old man says he always knew he was a good man. Now God is calling him to try to water the earth. The main character waters the soil. I notice the earth taking on a natural color. The old man says to plant something now like grass, and Elisea remembers that he once had it. After planting the plants, she immediately stands up, shouts that they are growing so fast, and asks how this is possible. The old man grunts and says he can feel his power coming back, which is Tadashi's blessing. It will let you grow any plant in 3 days. The protagonist thanks him for the explanation and says things are a bit clearer now. The old man is surprised. The other man showed no surprise and tells the main character to grind the animal bones they found along the way into powder for fertilizer. Sprinkling the plants makes them grow even faster. The main character reacts again with enthusiasm, and grandfather says fertilizers work better too, and that at this rate, he will be able to grow a large tree in 2 days. The old man suggests they try growing something else, and the younger man is happy to help. God says evening is coming, and they must chop wood for the fire. The main character says he does not want to cut down a tree that will soon grow, and he lays his hands on it as if asking the tree for forgiveness. A man starts chopping down a tree. He asks God whether the wood needs to be dried before making a fire. God says he will explain everything now. Freshly cut trees hold a lot of moisture, so you cannot use them for a fire, but they should dry in 3 days if someone is capable, and he says 3 days is not so bad. The old man reassures him that a better option exists and urges him to take the tree and survive it. The main character asks again, and the old man agrees, comparing it to a rag. Tadashi squeezes the wood as if it were a rag. He reacts with intense surprise and a questioning tone. God says Tadashi now understands what could surprise him. Surprised, the main character realizes this is also a blessing from God because it looks like magic. He still wonders how a tree could be squeezed out like that. The old man tells him to stop judging everything by the rules of his world. This is a world of gods and people blessed by them. He says a blessing is not magic. It is God's own skill, and God has endless possibilities, and the man received a blessing too, so don't let him forget it. A young man studies the hand and thinks the 7-star blessing from the god of agriculture is amazing. An old man offers to start a fire. The young man apologizes and asks how to get a fire. God tells him not to worry and to lay out some dry grass. The main character follows the instructions and asks if he did it correctly. The old man agrees and tells him to take 2 pebbles and strike them together to try to make a spark. The main character follows God's instructions, sparks a flame, transfers it to a tree, and it becomes a bonfire. Tadashi asks God if he finds the bonfire beautiful. The god of agriculture says that after all his work, he enjoyed making a fire with his own hands most of all, and that he is funny. The main character says this is the overnight campfire he has always dreamed of. The god of agriculture says he's right, because sometimes it's useful to sit and talk with someone by the campfire. Around the bonfire, they talk through the night, and as they watched the stars and listened to the sounds of nature, the main character felt nostalgic, because in a past life he could only dream of this and his ancestors had lived that way. Morning dawned in Dashi's mind as the god of agriculture asked him what had really happened. He replies that he was thinking about his future and that he clearly needs to build a house, and he also says he needs something to boil water in and generally needs many things, and God asks what is stopping him since he found clay yesterday. Remembering her, the main character admits he had completely forgotten her. To make it more durable, he mixes it with sand. Surprisingly skilled, he says that, since he used to be very bad at it, he is doing pretty well now. The main character assumes the blessing of the god of blacksmithing is at work. An old man peers at the beautiful rope in the young man's hand and asks what it is. The young man replies that it is Dizaman ceramics and explains his ancestors used to make them. The god of agriculture says it sounds interesting and that things from his world are beautiful. The main character says all that's left is to fry them in the fire. He notices it has started to turn black. God chuckles nearby. He insists everything is exactly as he said. The young man asks what he means. The hero's voice shows a lack of understanding. An old man warns that if you rush the work, the dishes will break, but with the blessing of the god of blacksmithing, everything turns out well. The man says he will keep polishing them to improve their appearance and provide some protection against outside moisture. They keep doing the dishes. The main character realizes he hasn't felt this much joy from work in a long time. Before, his days were just routine chores from morning to evening. The man says he's hungry and needs to cook something, and God reminds him he caught a fish while fetching water. Dashi tells him to wait. They ask if it is edible at all. God says it is a demonic salmon that can be eaten but is hard to catch, and they warn it becomes poisonous if cooked incorrectly. The man asks again in surprise. The god of agriculture calms him and says everything is fine, because his touch immediately removed the poison, and the main character asks if that is true. God says if he dislikes something, he can leave the fish and train in martial arts, but the man refuses and says he only wants to be an ordinary farmer. The old man says he is joking and urges him to remember that some creatures remain hostile even after purification. There are such creatures in the local forest. God told him not to worry and said he would stay with him that night, but then advised finding shelter or building a house. The man suddenly noticed something, stammered, and asked what it was. The old man said it was just some kind of demonic bird and told him not to let it bother him. The man says he must make a weapon, but God points out he already has one, explaining that demonic ore and wood are stronger than steel, so any tool made from them would be better than a sword. He reminds the main character not to forget he is a hero and has a blessing. Stalin says he is stronger than any man in the world. The man replies uncertainly. He still prefers to prepare. The old man agrees, asks if he remembers that Alicia herb, and says it can be used to make a dissonal drug for him. The god of agriculture says it is better to prepare for everything in advance, because if the man follows that principle, he could later save more than a dozen lives besides his own, and when the man turns to him thinking he does not understand what the god means, he should not ignore the god's words. He suggests we continue cooking, first slicing the salmon, then putting it into boiling water and adding some mushrooms. The man thinks it smells edible, tries it, and finds it very tasty, but it needs more miso, sauce, or at least ordinary salt. The god of agriculture asks why he does not add some grass. Alicia is there, and Tadashi asks if that is possible. He notices he tastes even better. The old man says it is generally an ingredient in the elixir of life, but as a seasoning, it is useless. They prepare the soup. The old man claims he is a god and can safely accept food as an offering. The main character doubts this and asks what the god would like first as an offering. God says he would prefer a stone statue, but must be content with what he has. The food is ready. The old man wishes the man a pleasant meal and asks how he likes the food. God replies that the food is very tasty and that he has not eaten such a good dish for a long time. Tadashi is glad he liked it. The god of agriculture says he would even invite that green-headed man to taste this, and though it is bold to ask, wants him to have a statue. The hero wonders whether he means a volcano. The grandfather replies that he can and will eventually make the best tools in the world. Vulcan, the god of blacksmithing, appears out of nowhere. He says he does not need much persuasion. Kronos hands him a bowl of soup and tells him to try it. Vulcan notices it is fish soup. Vulcan tries it and Tadashi calls him Mr. Volcano while asking if he likes it, and Vulcan replies that it is very good. Kronos then tells Vulcan that after he has eaten he must work, and Vulcan asks what he means and says he will then prolong his pleasure. The god of agriculture agrees, tells him to eat and to listen, then tosses something into the god of blacksmithing's hand and asks whether he recognizes it, and Vulcan says it is demonic ore. Kronos asks if he can process it, then says it is impossible for him, but adds that for the god of blacksmithing, with divine power, everything is possible. Vulcan wonders why a divine power would be here at all, and the old man reacts in stunned disbelief, saying he has never heard of any mortal able to make anything from her, and insisting on being told the secret. The god of blacksmithing blames mortals for not thinking big. He tells the main character they will need several tools, such as an oven, an anvil, a hammer, and a pair of tongs to hold the hot metal. Tadashi asks him to speak more slowly. God says they will start with a simple oven, and he adds that he would like to see a couple of melting molds and spaces for the material beside it, but so far it is fine. After completing the furnace, the main character says it is ready, and the volcano instructs to build a fire and add air and firewood here until the temperature reaches its peak. The god of blacksmithing praises him and says only the fire still needs to be added. Tadashi replies that demonic trees do not burn. The god asks if he is sure, saying that with enough effort they can be ignited, though many are unwilling to try. That is why some believe the wood does not burn. Tadashi says it is not burning, and the god of blacksmithing replies that he knows and asks him to wait and watch closely as the flame gradually spreads over the branches, and Vulcan tells the main character that the flame has changed from red to blue. Tadashi says it needs a higher temperature to ignite and assumes the same for demonic ore. The god of blacksmithing praises him, saying he understood immediately, and they add that Mia does not understand and keeps trying to take items made from that material from him. Vulcan says he knows what to do and that it's time to act, and he will be there and will let you know if needed. The main character thanks him. Tadashi gets to work and processes the stone until the ore turns blue. He thinks it over and assumes he did everything right. The god of blacksmithing speaks to him. The main character shudders and replies in a fearful, uncertain voice, but the god only praises him, saying the blue aura shows he can work with it now, adding that he has never had a better student in his life, and it thanks you for the compliment. Unsure what to do, the main character asks Vulcan, the god of blacksmithing, who says it is better to make a plate first and then try to turn it into a hammer or something similar. He tells himself that if nothing works out, he'll at least know which way to go. Vulcan says everything is fine and that when he's finished he should put it in the water. The result will be blue ore, very strong and excellent for tools. Vulcan praises the main character and says it is not a bad start. The main character holds a finished tool, says his hammer is ready and he has succeeded, admits he looks so-so but must do his job and believes it will improve, and the god of blacksmithing says it turned out well and that more practice will make everything better. The protagonist promises to try harder and asks to be taught. Vulcan approves and suggests mining more now or building a better forge next time. Vulcan also asks if the man can work with earthen materials. A man shows the clay pots. Surprised god did not notice them, and Tadashi says he made the pots by firing them at high heat and clarifies they are ceramics, while god says he should start improving their quality and suggests creating a firing chamber. The man says that if he helps him, he will only be happy. God says he has nowhere to go, so Dashi and Vulcan start working together. No mortal could match their speed. By working together, they achieved their goals. The main character falls asleep, and the man beside him says he finally fell asleep, adding that it is a shame because even the blessed need rest, but he does not mind and tells the main character to sleep after working 2 days straight. The god of agriculture says they did a good job developing Tadashi, and Vulcan agrees, saying that if the god of agriculture says so, a seed planted in fertile soil and carefully tended will eventually bloom and yield abundant fruit. Another man asks whether the young man will blossom, and he replies he cannot say for sure, adding that after the days they spent together, he can only say he is not the kind of person who wants to risk his life. Vulcan says he has prepared the man well, and that the man may not save the world, but still has a good chance to make it a little better, and the god of agriculture thinks the place the man reached is just an abandoned prison of the Avesta world. God believes that while Tadashi is here he can change everything, not just for the locals but for the gods as well. He says Tadashi should at least try, and they will simply watch what happens. The god of blacksmithing pauses briefly, but insists he is right. Kronos agrees. Both gods turn and see a young man awake. One of them says Tadashi has woken and addresses him. God announces his training is finished, and that for now they are leaving him to himself. Tadashi thanks them. A Vulcan nearby says he has not had students like these in a long time. A man tells the main character to contact him if problems arise, warns he will not work for free, and asks for a good offering up front. They laugh, and Tadashi says everything is fine and they can count on him. The Minister of Agriculture says he must remember to equip himself and start living first, then make the offerings. A man says that is natural and thanks him for the comment, and nearby a volcano tells Kronos to move forward faster. The old man says he'll miss the younger man, but those are the rules, asks him to take care of himself, and the man agrees, thanking him again for the help. The gods fly away. Kronos shouts that they will meet again. The main character watches them and promises they will meet for sure, then looks at the rising sun and says it is time for his first harvest. His new life in this world began then. After the third harvest, the field had changed dramatically. The cypress and chestnuts he planted started to look like a forest. He built a small house, a granary, and a small cellar. For the measured life he dreamed of, that was all he needed. The main character says he has been feeling lonely lately. He attributed this to the drawbacks of living on the edge of the world. Dreaming of a pet, he wondered where he could find one in such a wilderness. Suddenly the main character hears screams, wonders what they are, and though he doesn't want to get involved, he decides to take a look, planning to run if things go wrong. Walking toward the screams, the main character is stunned when he suddenly sees a puppy running from a monster right in front of him. Realizing that doing nothing will only make things worse, he asks himself what to do and whether he should try to save anyone or run away. Suddenly the main character remembers the god of agriculture's words that the man is now very strong. He knows what to do. Determined, he grabs a tool from his bag and feels blessed by the god of agriculture. The main character tells the monster to stay away, picks up the poker from the ground, and wonders if he has succeeded as the monster stares at him. He keeps hunting for the puppy. Someone says he's very pushy. He has a plan forming and decides to avoid a direct attack. If it can fly, you can just shoot it down. He throws dirt at the monster with a hoe and shouts at it to get it. The monster looks surprised and offended. The main character asks if it wants more and tells it to fly up. The monster screams at him in anger. The main character throws dirt on him again, shouting there's plenty of land and he shouldn't be shy, and warns him not to try to get in here or he'll bury him right there. A man tells the flying bird not to come back, calling him an overgrown chicken. The little animal trembles in Dashi's arms. Dashi asks him what he thinks of himself and what terrible wounds he has. The main character looks at the animal's terrible wounds. He asks him to wait a bit and starts pulling everything out of the bag. She takes out a plant and bandages the animal's wound with it. He thinks this will help. Tadashi strokes the animal's head. The main character asks him where he came from and where his parents are, then thinks he is clearly not from around here and assumes he was lost or chased by that monster, notices the puppy reaching for the bone, and asks whether the puppy wants a bone. The animals are close to the bone. Someone loudly asks the guy what he is doing. He thinks a puppy that eats bones like that will break all its teeth. The main character gives him food. They tell him to eat. The animal smiles to itself, and I think it is very cute. I don't know who it is, but it looks very much like a dog. Tadashi says it cannot stay here and asks if it wants to go with him. The animal makes happy sounds. The main character scoops him up and says it's nice that they'll live together now. He remembers the puppy needs a name. The man gives him a questioning look. The main character gets an idea, naming the animal Kuru because it makes strange noises. He is glad not to be alone. Lying on the bed, the protagonist thinks the forest is growing and the fields are expanding, and he already has several kinds of food crops, but worries the season will end soon and he hasn't had time to do much. Looking out the window, he decides to try to find out what's there and steps outside to start packing. Looking over the collected items, he admits he does not know what's there but must be ready for anything, mentions what he believes is an adult courier, and notices how quickly the young man has grown up. Tadashi isn't sure if such rapid growth is normal for him, but in any case, he is a subspecies of this world's dogs. He tells Kuru they are going on a short trip. Kuru gives a questioning growl. Pointing to the horizon, he says they are heading to the sea to get salt. He does not know how many days it will take, but they have nothing to do here this season. A man asks the animal whether it can see where he is pointing his finger, and the animal growls eagerly, as if asking the main character to write it. So Tadashi asks again, but the main character refuses, saying he can walk on his own. The beast still forces the protagonist to climb onto it. The protagonist is stunned and cries out. The beast begins its journey. They cover ground quickly. The man tells Kuruar that he is just something. His speed matches that of a car. They reach the sea in no time. A beautiful seascape unfolds before them. The man says walking would take many days. He praises Karyuda and thanks him for bringing him. The main character thinks the sea here looks a lot like the one from his world and is surprised. He does not notice how dark the water is and assumes he can clear it. He touches the water, it clears, and he admires it, reacting loudly. He tastes the water and finds it salty and increasingly like the sea from his world, so he assumes the worlds are generally similar, decides to try making salt, and expects the plan will be supported for now. Boiling salt water and letting it evaporate leaves the salt at the bottom. The main character is doing this and considers starting salt production when an animal suddenly approaches, and he asks the creature what it is. The protagonist notices the seafood and comments on it. The animal beckons him to follow. He asks whether following the animal is worth it. Kururu leads him to the pond. The man reacts loudly, calling it gorgeous and saying how huge it is. A satisfied Kuru is brought to him inside a lobster's mouth, and the main characters are surprised to find lobsters in this world. At first, the protagonist doubts lobsters because he is still in another world, but soon he puts aside his doubts and says he does not care whether there are lobsters. A tempting seafood spread is set on the table. Tadashi breaks off a piece and asks to try Kurura. He finds it very tasty and salty right away, which is not surprising since they live in seawater, and he thinks again that it's simply delicious. Kuru looks disappointed and sighs when the food runs out. The main character promises to cook more and reassures him not to worry. A ship is visible behind Tadashi. The main character notices Karuru has started drinking a lot and assumes the salty food is to blame, so he suggests we give him water. The man turns and sees Kurura on the other side and wonders who is drinking the water if Kurura is here. Startled, the main character turns and sees a girl, lets out a loud, questioning sound, hears the cat-eared girl say the water has run out, and stays so stunned he cannot form a question and wonders if she is really a girl. In his mind, he tells himself the girl has ears too. He had only seen such ears in fantasies. He asks where she comes from and worries the world may have water problems. She asks him for water and food and calls him a gentleman, and he, surprised to be called that, asks her to wait. With tears in her eyes, a girl hugs a frozen guy as other girls suddenly run up to him. One of them calls him a human being and demands he take his hands off Aaron. The protagonist wonders what is happening. First a girl with cat ears, then an elf. Assuming they were on that ship, he was so into seafood he didn't even notice them. He pauses and asks why the girl is in a swimsuit, since elves usually live in the forest. He's wondering what's going on. The second girl asks if he heard her and shouts at him again to stay away from Aaron, while the main character asks the girl to let him go, saying neither he nor they like it. Behind the elven-looking girl, the other girls tell him to let her go, insisting this is a man and that it is unthinkable Aaron was grabbed by a man. The girl with the ears calls him gentleman again and asks for food. Tadashi says he'll give her food only if she stops calling him master. The girl calls the elf Iceline and says that he is a good person. Iceline urges the girl to move away from him. She asks whether she can see that he is a man too. The elf says humans are treacherous and might have poisoned the food, but Tadashi denies it and says all the seafood was caught here recently, and he asks why he would poison food he would eat himself and who they are. Surprised by his words, the elf asks if this marks the border of human territory, and the main character tells her, surprised, that they do not understand which border she means. She asks where they sailed to. It replies that the god said they had reached the edge of the world. Surprised, the girl asks again about the edge of the world. Surprised to realize how far she has been, she immediately notices that the water on the border of the world must be black and poisonous, and he replies that he cleaned it, otherwise he could not have gotten salt and seafood from it. The elf presses him again and warns him not to lie. Isolina says she does not believe him. The man says they have the right to doubt, but he is telling the truth. The cat-eared girl asks if the others want to eat and says he has clean water. The elf-eared girl asks her if she understands what she is saying. Aaron asks what's wrong and says there's no food or water left on the ship. She claims that if she had not met this man herself, she would have died. Isolina says uncertainly that she is right. The main character says if they need it that much he'll share his provisions, then says he's not, apologizes and says maybe he'll catch it later, and the elf-eared girl refuses, saying after what people have done you can't believe it. She turns to Kurura and asks what kind of magical beast it is and why it is so large. The man asks her again if she means Kurura. Claiming it's an ordinary dog, he says he does not understand her and thinks at least now he knows who Karuru is, but he keeps saying he is only a small dog, at most a wolf, while the girl says dogs and wolves cannot be that big. She screams that his fangs could easily chew through a dragon's scales, says she does not know who he thinks he is, but insists he is the legendary Fenrir, a terrible monster before her eyes. She gets so scared that she faints. People behind her hold her up and call her Mrs. Iceland, asking her to come to her senses. Tadashi is at a loss. Everything is floating before my eyes. She opens her eyes slowly and mumbles. The person in front of her asks if she is awake. Screaming sharply, she calls him human and pushes him away. He asks her to stop treating him that way because the others calmly accepted his help. They told him they had been fishing and were swept away. He doesn't know what they'll do next, but says they need to rest and regain strength first. He hands her a bowl and tells her to drink. She asks what it is. Tadashi says it's Lizzie's herb water and that it should help her get better. The girl nearly falls again and asks about Alyssa's grass. I ask him where he found such a rare plant. The main character asks how she is. He asks if she realizes she is dehydrated and hasn't eaten for a long time. The goddess of healing gave her the 3-star blessing, so she knew he wasn't lying and that the herb was Elijah's. She thinks it's very hard to find or buy. She assumes he is genuinely a good person. The main character helps her drink. Soon the elf rises and says she can keep drinking. The man says that's fine and suggests she try to stand. Feeling grass beneath her, she asks about it since they had been on the beach. The main character says he raised her and thought lying on the sand would be uncomfortable. In disbelief, the girl asks him again and wonders about growing Alyssa's grass, while privately she remains surprised by this man because she thought he had lied about the sea, and with Fenrir serving him, the elf wonders who he is. Tadashi strokes the animal and praises him, calling him a good boy. The girl looks at the main character's hand and notices a 9-star blessing. She believes that since he has the greatest blessing, it's best not to oppose him and apologizes for her earlier words and actions. He introduces himself as the head of the Sea Elves, the representative of the Flounder Archipelago, and as Isolane to Ariadne. The man responds positively, saying he knows and has heard she is the queen of the entire archipelago. The girl asks him again and he says no. She says it was a long time ago, and now she is just the head of the Sea Elves. He apologizes to her. Then I remember I haven't introduced myself yet. He says his name is Ono Tadashi, and the girl asks if he is really the king, repeating her question because she is unsure whether he said he was the king. Confused, the main character says no and that she misheard the last name. He says it's just a surname and that Tadashi is his first name. She asks his name again, unsure if she pronounced it correctly. The girl says that in any case, if someone has a surname, it means their family is well known, and she assumes the main character is a knight, a hero, or a sage, but he denies it and says he is an ordinary farmer. Surprised, she asks again, and Aaron notices the girl who woke up, who says the gentleman is good and even has the 7-star blessing of the god of agriculture, so he can make everything grow quickly. As usual, she says she has the wind in her head. I ask if she really thinks anyone would simply share food. Aaron says they would have died if they had not accepted help. She gives the elf-eared girl some seafood, and they tell her to try it. Isolina agrees in a condescending tone. They say he will look at it. The main character is at a loss and asks what this behavior is about now. When the girl tried it, the man asked if she was sure there was no poison. She replied gloomily that if she wanted to check for poison that day, she would make him try it first. She added that she would like to refuse, but really needed to regain her strength now. Wondering what she meant when she said she would make him try, the main character assumes something similar exists in this world. The elf-eared girl frowns but keeps eating. The main character smiles at the picture. At the end, she thanks him for the meal and turns to him. He looks at her questioningly. The girl kneels. The main character looks shocked. The cat-eared girl looks surprised too. I suddenly ask the main character to let her be his servant. He responds loudly, sounding unsure. The main character repeats her plea to be his slave under his breath, tries to make sense of it, and feels the other girl behind him watching, leaving him confused. He turns and tells them not to worry, and says he would never make a girl his servant. The elf says sadly someone must sacrifice themselves for him to help, and she volunteers to be that person, but Irene denies it, says she is their leader and that it is wrong, and offers herself as a servant to the main character. Isolina refuses and shouts that the girl is the beastman's hero and their last hope. The main character beside them asks why they want to thank him in this way for his help. The girls are a bit confused and say he is a man and they owe him. The elf also says people are bad and will force them into service. The man, puzzled, asks what she thinks of him. Iceland wonders whether he does not want a beautiful girl to be his servant. His imagination conjures a strange image. This embarrasses him, and he cannot imagine such a thing happening in his life. He wonders what they are thinking. He says, puzzled, that he's always lived alone and does not need servants, but adds that Kururu does not count, while the elf reacts in disbelief and asks whether he is serious, and the second girl asks why he helped them then. Unable to figure out the problem, the man asks if people here don't do that to help anyone who needs it, and the girls shake their heads in disbelief. Stunned, the main character can't even form a proper question. He feels something is wrong with the people here and realizes he's in the Flounder Archipelago, home to the sea elves and beastmen. The elf says he was captured by the military duchy of the Eastern Sea people, and the man asks whether they obey him. She says that before the duchy captured them, demons kept attacking from the North Sea. Many of her companions were eaten, and the man thinks this is terrible. She adds that the sea elves and the beastmen have long been weak nations and have pushed toward the borders in conflicts, but now the archipelago is split between demons and humans. Irene continues, saying only girls remain among the survivors, and that the men either disappeared in the war or were eaten by demons. Islena says the demons only think of them as food, and that the duchy is better, but their demands are too high. Irene adds they said they would make her a servant if she did not fill their 7 treasuries to the top with gold, and she says she doesn't want to be their servant. The main character recalls a conversation with God and realizes these are the requirements Kronos told him about. The girls continue the story, saying they escaped by ship to avoid becoming servants and to search for provisions, and an angry main character clenches his fist and thinks the world is terrible and the people here are too cruel. Turning to Iceland, he says he will share his food and asks if they are omnivores. She replies yes, surprised, and he grabs the bag and shakes the food out, leaving her amazed as she picks up the food and asks what it is and what is wrong with the bag. That should be enough for them the first time, he says, and he offers more if they need it. Aaron says it's great and thanks him, calling him master again, and the main character says he asked them to stop calling him mister. The girl behind him wants to say something but does not dare. He notices something is wrong. The elf says he gave Alicia's herb to her and asks if he still has much left. Tadashi replies that he does, says there is more in the field, and tells her to get some grass because he is still picking. She holds the plants, explains the state of the field, and I am surprised he grows the plant himself. Isolna says she cannot believe it because the plant is very rare and hard to grow. The main character is surprised and asks what problem there is with growing it. The girl with the ears tells her to calm down and reminds her that Tadashi is the king of agriculture, has a 7-star blessing, and can easily raise her, and the other girl says Aaron is right because she completely forgot. Many people on the island are wounded, the girl says, and she is surprised he agreed to give them the grass for almost nothing. The main character tells her to tell them how much more they need, and he will give it. She thanks him sincerely and apologizes for not telling him earlier that she has the 3-star blessing of the goddess of healing. With Alicia's herb, she can brew an elixir far better than plain grass. The man says it is impressive. The girl offers to show what she can do right now. She takes an aromatic herb, pounds it, boils water, and finally pours it all into a glass jar. Lifting it until it glows, she summons Alicia to the goddess of healing and asks for the power to heal, surprising the main character. It turns out to be an elixir. She calls it a small price and asks Dashi to accept it as payment for his help, and he agrees and takes it. Tadashi says he's never seen a glass this beautiful. Isolina, speaking remotely, asks if that is all because she expected him to evaluate her skills, and he apologizes, saying her skills are great since even he doesn't know how to make such a beautiful glass. Replying that glass is made from ordinary sand so he can make it, she calls another girl a Sia. The girl approaches Mrs. Eileen, tells her she is listening, and looks at her mistress with excitement. He studies her and sees the glasses, realizing lenses can be made in this world. The elf says Asha makes glass, like vials, and has 1-star blessing from the god of blacksmithing, and that elves were originally skilled at glassmaking and possess secret knowledge they will share with him as payment. The protagonist says he will be very happy about this. He asks me to teach him so he can make the same glass. The girl, confused, agrees and says she will show him everything. She says that even with so much sand under their feet, they still have no stove or tools. Dashi is told that everything will be fine now. Loaded with materials, he pulls out his bag and shakes everything out. He asks you to tell him what you need and says he will make it. He is glad Kronos gave him the bag. Both elves were greatly surprised. Xiao explains everything to him and they start working, and Isolina notices he can create bricks, so she asks the second girl how he creates the brick, assuming he also has the blessing of the god of blacksmithing and that his main blessing has sped up the process. Surprised, the girl learns he was blessed by more than one god. She admits Sia is better at this, so that's probably true. At last, the main character finishes building the furnace. He will need to handle some portable options later. Sia scoops up a handful of sand and says everything depends on the sand's quality, pointing out there are many shells in sea sand so they will need algae. Isolane suggests he take the algae on their ship. The main character thanks her and accepts the offer. Once aboard the ship, the main character notices something. His gaze locks on the spot in stunned surprise. He asks the girls whether Undaria is feathery. Isolina asks whether he knows that kind of algae. The protagonist replies positively that his world had an ocean too, and says he does not know how much glass is needed here, but will leave some for the soup. The girl asks if he has any algae and says visitors always threw them away and looked at them oddly, and he replies that they taste good, asks why he should not eat them, and admits not everyone likes their strong taste. Islina wonders if it's true and says he would look good in the sea, folks. The girl blushes a little and smiles, and the hero thinks again that, according to the sign, there are algae and that all Japanese could be included here. Noticing the seeds of marine cotton and marine rubber, the main character uses the assessment skill and considers how marine cotton differs from ordinary cotton. The girl explains their clothes use marine cotton and rubber and demonstrates on herself, and the guy blushes as he says he understands and that they will need to grow them, then asks her to show him how to do it properly, and she says she will be happy to show you. She says it may take a year or more to grow. He finds it interesting and invites her to see what he can do. They wade in up to their knees and water. Dashi throws a seed into the water, and Islina wonders what will happen after he planted it. When suddenly a small tree grows, the girl looks surprised, and the main character beside him remembers it can be used as fertilizer. She says he's smart and that one use is simply to fertilize the soil. He offers to try and sprinkles fertilizer on it. The girl says she can hardly believe her eyes. The tree's growth amazes her. The main character sees huge trees growing in the middle of the beach and realizes he will have enough material to make glass. He turns to Isolene, who replies. He reminds her she promised to do anything to repay him for his help and the food, and the girl, a little scared, says if it is within her power, she is ready for anything. The world does not need healers or brave warriors, but people willing to feed the population, and Tadashi is ready to do that, so he must sacrifice his goals. Claiming to be an ordinary farmer who knows nothing about this world, he wants to strike a deal. She asks him again, a little surprised. He says he is, and as a farmer he needs different plants, seeds, and knowledge, and in return he will give them the food and alicia, grass they need to help make the island and its people happier and better. Smiling and blushing a little, the girl says she understood him. Iselina says they will return to their island tomorrow morning, but she will still fulfill his request. After asking again about tomorrow morning, he suddenly notices it is already evening, and the girl, puzzled, asks what is wrong as she looks at him. He says he was exhausted today, forgot to build a bed for the night, and is very annoyed after spending all his materials on the stove and tools. She tells him not to despair and that everything is fine. Iseline cheers Aaron on. Aaron says everything is fine and sets up the tents. Once they are up, the main character notes they had tents all along. Aaron thanks the girls and they smile. The main character watches Kuru run toward him. He tells Kuru it did a good job today, too. Noticing Kuru covered in sand, he tells him to follow him. They head for the water. Kuru lets out a happy roar. Now Kuru is fluffy and beautiful. The main character watches the girls bathing and feels unsure how to bathe. Tadashi blushes and says they will need a locker room in the future. A smiling Iceline approaches him and invites him to spend the night in her tent. Blushing, he says it's a bad idea as he tries to refuse the girl's offer. He prefers to stay here and watch the bonfire. The girl asks what he dislikes. Zelina and Asia pull him into a tent and say they won't let him sleep outside. Aaron greets them inside. One of them asks if the gentleman is with them. The protagonist, confused, says it's still a bad idea. He looks around without noticing how much more spacious it is inside. He agrees, admitting he was persuaded. The girl with the ears smiles and says Mr. Tadashi will sleep with them for you. Tadashi blushes and, offended, says he refuses now and goes to sleep by the campfire. Aaron smiles. Kururu appears suddenly. The main character says the animal convinced him, so they will sleep here. Everyone is sleeping peacefully. The next morning the main characters leave the tent. Aaron greets him cheerfully and asks if he is awake, and he replies that he is and that she got up early too. She asks him if he'll work since she assumed he'd take the chance. The main character asks what chance she means. She pulls back the tent curtain and sarcastically asks how it is. They notice sweet Iceline sleeping. Aaron tells him to look at her and reminds him she would do anything for him. Tadashi asks what is wrong with her and who she even accepts him for. Laughing, the girl says Iceline is not his type. The guy says she is his type, but he will not use her. The man changes the subject and asks how the fabric is attached to the tent, and the woman calls it a stupid question, says the glue holds it, and asks what other way there could be. The main character thinks they use animal bones to make glue here, just like in his world. Asha wishes everyone a good morning and asks him to dash if he wants to know how they make tents. She explains the tent's elasticity comes from marine rubber, and the guides are made from different types of wood. The main character says he understood and thinks the elves are very smart. Aaron asks the man if he really likes this kind of thing. The man replies that he has always dreamed of this. Aaron then asks the woman what she likes. When asked again, she cannot answer at first, says she does not know. Then, as a warrior, assumes she likes to fight and proudly claims she once even killed sharks, while the main character looks on in disbelief. Surprised, he says he didn't expect that response from her. An elf girl appears behind him. Tadashi wishes Iceland a good morning and gives her water, telling her to drink. The girl says she is very embarrassed to look sleepy in front of a few people. It turns out he was wrong to assume she preferred ordinary people, since she is a princess after all. Iselina tells Tadashi they are returning to their island, and that, judging by the wind's strength and direction, they should arrive tomorrow. So Tadashi tells her to go as soon as possible and bring food for her comrades, and the elf thanks him again. The protagonist says it's a deal, so she does not have to thank him. He reaches that conclusion because he cannot ignore how people here treat others. The girl looks at him with enthusiasm and a small blush. She thanks him again. He finally understood what Kronos had meant back then. The gods grant power for a purpose. Her worth must be proven by helping others. Iselina asks him to look after Asia and two others while she is away. He agrees and thanks her. The girl boards the ship, and they set off while the main character waves and wishes them a safe journey. The main character says the girls can now identify and talk about themselves, and he wants to give them jobs that match their skills. They agree. One introduces herself as Lola and says she can do it very well. The other says she is Bari and that she worked in the fields. The main character says he understands and is counting on the two of them and on Asia, asks them to change into different clothes, notes that swimsuits are okay but too much for him, and asks if they have any other clothes. Many people wonder why all CLs wear swimsuits. Lola says a swimsuit is the best workwear on the beach. Tadashi says they will have other jobs on Earth now, so he will give them different clothes since exposed skin would be dangerous, and the girls agree. Isia asks where to start and suggests making glass. The main character pauses and says they should grow a forest first. The girls react with surprise and ask him to repeat. The view of the sea is beautiful. Bari is surprised that the trees only grow because they are watered. The main character says he wasn't joking. He plans to plow, and Bari will plant and water. He concludes that even if they follow his instructions and succeed, it proves anyone can grow anything so quickly on land he has plowed. The main character thinks the forest preparations are ready. The girls turn to him and ask what is wrong. He stops and says he wants to dig a well here. Bari tells him to leave this job to her because she already dug a well on the island. The main character refuses help and says he'll handle it alone. He believes what he seeks is somewhere here. The girl looks lost. He strikes the instrument against the ground. The girl reacts with a loud cry of surprise, and the main character says he guessed right and tells her to step back. A strong stream of water suddenly burst from the spot where he had struck. Bari cried out in surprise and told Dashi he had smelled fresh water underground, so he struck there. He's glad it worked out so quickly, and he didn't have to dig a hole, and she agrees but says she doesn't quite understand what he means. She offers to handle building the well because her job is to help him, and he agrees, saying she can work if she wants. The materials are already prepared where he points. Even though it's early, he'll take care of lunch for them. Asha asks Lola to help him cook. Lola agrees happily. They are going to Kuror. Proud of his catch, he is very pleased. Tadashi praises him and says he brought many things. He licks the salt from his finger and thinks he made great salt. Lola asks him what she should do. He asks for some time to think, then tells her to bring the algae isolane left for him. He will make the broth while she soaks the seaweed in a large saucepan. Lola smiles and says she understands. She leaves quickly. Tadashi smiles and decides he can take his time because lunch is still a while away. Lola calls out to the hero that the broth is almost ready, and the girl looks towards the hero with a happy smile. Smiling, the girl spots Tadashi's desk and leans toward the main character, who is pushing something and wonders if he's making bread. Tadashi says he's pleasantly surprised she knows, because he'd heard shea fruits could be used to make bread and cookies, so he decided to try. Smiling, the girl says she has already made bread and he can leave it to her, and he smiles back and agrees, but says he also wants to learn to make bread so they should make it together, and Lola agrees happily. She gets to work and starts pounding the dough. Placing a piece on the table, she says the fruits are good for cooking, but better mixed with flour. The main character listens with interest and says they will need to ask Zelina to deliver more of them. She reassures him not to worry and says she will take care of everything, adding that having salt is good because it makes the dough heavier. He agrees and says he is good at salting. Together they put the dough in the oven and say all that remains is to bake the bread. When the bread is ready, they pull it out. Noticing it looks different from bread in his world, the man breaks off a piece and assumes this is how it should be. Next came the seafood soup. Pulling out the seaweed so it wouldn't boil, he studied the dish and said adding what Kururu found would make it turn out well. When dinner was ready, all three girls were amazed. One of them tastes the dishes and says they are delicious. Asha says she did not know Tadashi could cook seaweed and that she would eat it with them. They might think he is also from the CL family. Lolo smiles and says he does not consider the other a stranger either. The main character says he is pleased to hear that. The man asks Karuru if he likes the bread, saying it tastes good because of the she fruit. Karuru growls happily while eating. Turning to the three girls, the main character thanks them for their hard work today. He tells them he made coffee from local fruits and asks them to try it. Isia says they have never had that kind of drink and wants to know what coffee is. The girl loudly says he is bitter. Lolo says that although he tried hard to make it for them, they'd rather drink water. She apologizes, and the main character, confused, says it would be better for him to apologize. It tastes a lot like the coffee from his world, he thinks, and he can't figure out where he went wrong. Asha smiles and says the coffee is delicious and she likes it. He's glad to hear that and exhales. She asks him not to do this. He laughs and says he will also teach how to make better glass today. Ashamed, she says that's all she can do to help. After working in the workshop, Isia and Tadasi finally make a glass bottle, and the main character says the job is ready while holding the finished bottle in his hand, and the girl says it's gorgeous or the best. She mentions he even made a glass-blowing device. The main character laughs and says he just had a good teacher. Thinking of the gods, he hopes Vulcan and the others are well, and he thinks they should treat them to seafood someday. She says his wood burns perfectly, and with his technology they can make top-quality glass. Isia tells Tadashi that with more glass they can make more bottles for elixirs. Tadashi says she understood him perfectly and asks her to make as many vials as possible. The hero asks her to make glassware, saying it is more beautiful and stronger than ceramic, and she agrees. The hero realizes they need a lot of elixir, so it's time to expand the elixirgrass fields and plant a field of vegetables for food. Tadashi asks Bari for help because he must act before sunset, and the girl agrees without hesitation. The hero thinks to himself, even with so much work, he likes living this way. Using what he gathers, he makes his own tools and dishes. Tadashi believes this is exactly how we wanted to live. Then Bari asks the man if he needs to pick cotton and rubber today. She offers to go after them. Lola tells the hero that if he wants to make thread and fabric, he'll need a spinning wheel and a loom, but those are hard to make. The girl says she and Asiya can work hard and make them. Dashi agrees and says he will learn to sew. The hero will use cotton to make threads and fabrics because those will be much higher quality. Tadashi says he doesn't usually think about that, but he wants to sew nice clothes for girls so they can save on swimwear. Bari suddenly spots something, turns and calls to Tadashi. The heroes see a ship heading toward them, and Tadashi says it's Iceland and the others, relieved they're doing well. More ships suddenly appear behind one ship, and Tadashi is surprised at how many there are. Ships moor at the shore, elves start climbing down and unloading their belongings. A girl named Erin runs up to Dashi calling him Mr., and the hero shouts that he has already asked her several times not to call him that. The girl sticks out her tongue and says she doesn't know anything. Iceland tells Tadashi that they are back. She says they brought a harvest and asks the hero to take a look. Tadashi is very surprised. At first the hero expected Iceland and the others to bring only seeds, but he finds the finished product is still better. Looking at the food baskets, he says barley and hops will be useful for brewing beer and uses sugar cane and palm nuts to make sugar and butter. The hero finds wheat and soybeans in the large harvest and thanks Iceland for bringing the food. The girl says they tried to grow them on the island, but they would not grow. The girl apologizes that their island does not suit some cultures, but the hero interrupts and says what the elves brought is more than enough, praising them and adding he would not know what to do if there were more cultures. Iceland says it sent nearly everyone here to help the hero in the fields, and about 150 people arrived in total. The girl also says they took some tools that will help make fabrics. The hero thanks the elf for bringing the tools. Iceland says the hero could not doubt her because she ruled the whole country and had every detail planned. Tadashi realizes he must create the fields now, but suddenly Isurin turns to Asa and asks whether any of them had been intimate with Tadashi, and the hero falls into a stupor. Blushing, Usura says none of them even tried anything like that, and the girl replies she would not be offended if it happened because he is a great, strong man and it is natural to want to get closer to him. Tadashi wonders whether the girl knows he can hear everything, then asks Isoline a question. He asks why so many people are here. The man says he does not mind, but finds it a little confusing. Eyes of Line says all these elves will help build the village, but she doubts they will be enough. Surprised, the hero asks again, and the girl says the village will be built only with Tadashi's permission. Though he says he does not mind living here, he originally came only to stock up on food and asks the girl whether she really wants to build a fishing village here to get seafood. The girl says no and wants to build a village here, while Iceland says she is glad the hero created a forest for them. She asks if they can start cutting down the forest and build a village right away, and the hero is a little shocked. Tadashi explains a freshly cut tree can't be used right away and must be dried, adds it will take some time, and reproaches the girl, saying she knows that perfectly well. He says he can do the dash in 3 days if he tries hard, and that squeezing them hard will make the moisture come out much faster. She said she had not expected him to do it instantly, but since he was blessed by the god of agriculture and Kronos himself, she believed he had some way to do it that quickly. Iceland says that when they returned, she expected the wood to already be prepared for them, so they brought carpentry tools. She opened her eyes and realized everyone has limits. The hero doesn't understand what the girl means, so he calls to her, and Iceland turns and says he wants to build a kingdom led by Tadashi. The girl says she wants Dashi to be king and to rule these lands wisely, and the hero does not understand what is happening. He asks the girl whether she is exaggerating his merits. The girl admits it, saying she has Kronos' blessing, not just his. Isrin says Tadashi may be right, but the place is still seen as a prison even though he made the nearby land fertile, and the hero replies that the change was a blessing, and he is not as great as the girl believes. Tadashi asks the girl if they have no kingdom where they can live freely, and Tadashi doesn't understand why I surrender and wants to create a new kingdom. Asking about freedom, the girl tells the hero he is right but doesn't know what is outside that place. The girl calls for Lisa, and the hero watches in disbelief. Suddenly, an elf missing a right hand appears. Tadashi asks what happened to her. Isarun explains that Lisa is a warrior who has long served her family. She says the girl's parents were eaten by monsters from the Demon Lord's army, and she lost her right arm while trying to escape. Isarun hands Lisa an elixir. She drinks it without hesitation. The hero watches in surprise. Seeing the girl's arm begin to recover, the hero remembers hearing that the elixir is the best medicine in the world, but he never expected it could restore lost limbs. Once healed, the girl thanks Dashi and says she can now serve Iceland faithfully because of him. Iseline wants the hero to understand the whole situation. No matter how well she treats her people or what blessing she has, the island has no medicine or food. Iselina says she can neither rule the island nor protect it, so she gave up her position as queen, and Tadashi looks at her with sadness. She says she can only make an elixir, not cure people. The hero asks if he should give the elves the materials and food for the elixir. Will she become queen again? Iceland says no. Her elixir works only because it comes from the grass Tadashi grew, and only because of her can he restore the missing body parts. She says everyone here, not just Lisa, is alive only because the heroes gave them Alicia's herb. Giving Tadashi her crown, the girl explains that the first elf king, Evolus, was once a tree whose body changed over time, and that the crown proves he existed, is a sign of kingship, and has been passed down through generations. Iceland says she and all the elves want Tadashi as their king. Tadashi refuses, saying he cannot accept such a valuable thing. Telling the hero not to worry, the girl explains some islanders refuse to leave under any circumstances. Her wish is for the hero to be a ray of hope for those who have decided to leave the island, but that proved impossible for her. The hero asks Iceland whether she truly believes he can do it. Iceland replies yes, and explains that the rulers of each state are called God's apostles, and that Tadashi is the best of them. The hero thinks a blessing shows strength, and Iceland says none of those who call themselves king are any good, including her. Aaron stares at Iceland, sad and confused. The girl shouts that Tadashi is different. He has a kind heart and is stronger than everyone else. She says he only needs to become a king who can protect people like them. The hero looks at the girl, sad. He agrees, then asks if he always has to wear a crown. The girl is very happy with his answer. Iceland tells her people she is abdicating the throne and giving her power to Tadashi. The girl crowns the hero and tells everyone to greet the new king. Everyone is happy with the new king. Tadashi is unsure what to do next and does not know how to lead his people. The young man says his maternal grandfather named him Dashi, and when people heard this, they hoped he would one day change the world for the better. Tadashi had always thought his grandfather was exaggerating because he had failed in a previous life, but now Tadashi realizes he still has to try in this world. Taking off his crown, the hero says he doesn't need it anymore. The girl takes it and asks where he's headed. Dashi says he needs to plow a new field, that with more people they will need more grass, and that becoming a king does not relieve him of duties only he can do. The hero says the girl knows the king should always care for his people. She is pleased with Tadashi's answer. The hero knows that when building a village from scratch, he must plan field placement and maximize harvest efficiency. Dashi tells his people that since Iceline is no longer queen, the elves must now tell him everything they need. They agree. All the happy ones get to work. Tadashi tells Iceline he didn't think she expected so much from him. Iceline doesn't understand what the hero is talking about. The young man says it's nothing and tells her to forget it. Then Isle and Dross draw the hero's attention to the newly built house, and he is surprised by its size. Inspecting the structure closely, he praises the glass window and the elves' speed during construction. Iceland says she does not think future construction will go that fast, but Tadashi's house was built in the shortest possible time because he is the king of the elves. She tells him to praise the carpenters who built the house. The hero looks at the workers, confused. He believes that more women than men have sailed from the island. Dashi gathers his thoughts and thanks the workers, who are overjoyed. Master Carpenter Spike says it is too soon to thank them and urges Dashi to look at the house from the inside, then pushes him inside. Tadashi is stunned. Spike is glad the new king likes everything in the house. Tadashi thinks the boards are perfectly made, and the nails are hammered so they are barely visible. The hero asks the master carpenter which materials he is missing, and the carpenter says that because iron is scarce, they must save money. The hero says once he's finished with the fields he'll deal with the iron right away, and that magic iron is better than usual, and Spike is very grateful to the new king and says she is counting on him. Tadashi realizes the iron reserves are running low, so he'll have to think of a solution. His attention shifts to the luxurious bed in the room. The hero can't understand why the bed is so huge, and Isolene explains that its size and softness mark it as royal. The hero replies that he did not mean that. Tadashi asks if the bed is too big for one person. Isolene admits they forgot the hero sleeps alone. Tadashi can't imagine how anyone could forget something like that. It makes him uneasy that everyone else is sleeping so deeply. Isolene asks who she can pick as the hero, and Tadashi doesn't understand what the girl is saying. She thinks the hero didn't like Asha and the others, so she assumes Tadashi prefers slimmer girls. Bad feeling hits the hero. He asks Isolanda to slow down. She does not understand what is wrong and assumes he wants to invite several girls to his place. Tadashi says no and asks what kind of nonsense the girl is talking about, while Iceland insists it is not nonsense and says she cannot understand what made the hero so angry. The girl says that now the hero is king, he needs concubines. Tadashi is lost in his daydreams. Suddenly he realizes what Ice Rin is driving at. Eren says the hero couldn't dissuade the former queen from this idea. She says Eileen never wastes time. The hero asks her to explain what is going on here. Eileen tells Tadashi he does not need to worry about anything. She points out that elves and beastmen value ties to kings and now have very few men. The hero is outraged and says they do not exist at all. The girl says that because of the hero her people have no problems with housing or food, so she started thinking about having children. The hero asks if they do not hate people. Isolane says Tadashi is different from them. She explains that elves usually dominate the bloodline, so an elf-human child is more likely to be born an elf. She reassures him not to worry. The hero thinks to himself that he had pictured elves very differently. Eileen says that if a human child is born, the child would be happy living in that family, and she adds that they need to rebuild their family because they lost so many in the war. Eileen believes they would be best for Tadashi, so she tells him to first get close to Eren, the Beastman leader, and then offers him Lisa, but the hero says he does not know Lisa at all and will not get close to her. Surprised, Isoline says Tadashi is different from other human men. The elves have heard that human men always need a girl, and the hero replies that this is true, but believes feelings should not be forgotten. Isolane says elves have a breeding season, and because human and elf bodies are very similar, those problems should not occur. So if Tadashi wants children, he should get close to the elf only during the cycle. Outraged by Iceland's behavior, the hero says Lisa can sleep in his bed since she is a royal guard, but he will not do anything with her at night, and Iceland asks about Eren. Eren asks if she can get in line too. The answer is that Iceland herself is the best fit for that role. Sounding confused, the girl says she is not Dashi's type. Eren says Isserin is confused because things didn't work out between them last time. The girl advises the former elf queen to be more assertive. At that moment the hero realized this was the last time. It did not seem deliberate. Tadashi snapped to his senses and shouted at Eren not to call him master. She asks the hero if she can call him king, though she doubts it will change Tadashi's reaction. He agrees and asks why Eren can't call him by his first name like Isolene. The girl replies that Iceline is an exception, and calling the hero only by his first name could harm his reputation. The hero is confused. Eren is also the ruler, yet she never uses his name and calls him master instead. Eren says beastmen live in packs with a clear hierarchy, and it's better for her to know someone is stronger than she is. Although she says the gods bless her, her power does nothing to keep her people from dying in the war. Eren says she is exhausted and feels much like Iceland did when she chose to abdicate. Eren says when she first met the hero, she thought she could deal with him easily and would feel better, and those were her thoughts. Coming to her senses, the girl apologizes to the hero, explains she was distracted, and asks him not to pay attention to her. Tadashi can't believe Eren suffered the same fate as Isolane. He thinks the girl is still a child and already burdened by such a fate. The hero tells Eren she doesn't need to apologize. Eren tells the girl she can always rely on him. Eren is delighted. Tadashi says he will do his best. Tears fill the girl's eyes as she throws her arms around the hero's neck in gratitude, and the hero cannot believe Eren wants to protect someone too. Eren shouts to Isolane that she was lucky. Isolane says the hero will most likely choose her today. Tadashi says he didn't mean anything by it. Eren says the hero just has to put up with it. Tadashi feels a little irritated, and he thinks the main thing is that Eren got better after his words. A new day begins as the scene moves to the hero's room. He and Lisa leave. Then Eren jumps out from around the corner shouting good morning and holding a mug of morning drink, and Tadashi says that Iceland has a very amazing sleeping position. The hero offered the girl a place on the bed. Eren says that if she hadn't been so brave, she would have done the same. The hero says Eren was the one working behind Lisa's back, and the girl replies that she's already used to it. Tadashi thinks he was confident in his stamina, but Iceland managed to knock him out of the race, and after a while, Iceland wakes up. Embarrassed, the hero turns away from her and says we need to try again today, but the girl does not understand what is wrong. The heroes head to the fields. Tadashi says the wheat harvest for their main bread finished yesterday, and next come sugarcane, barley, and hops. Ilemon says she understands the need for the cane, but she can't imagine what to do with so much barley and hops. Tadashi says they will brew beer. Isolane asks Dashi again if the girl really knows nothing about beer, and Dashi says they brewed barley wine on the island without hops and used it as a medicinal plant. The girl says the hero realizes early barley wine had no hops, and he adds the wine is not like water and does not spoil, so it was taken on the voyage. Tadashi wonders if the taste has changed. The hero decides to make barley wine from the gifts of the gods who were kind to them. It should be as delicious as possible. Tadashi asks Islan if there are any brewers, and Islan says someone shares the hero's blessing, so Tadashi asks to be introduced. It turned out the person was a girl named Merle, who works as a cook. She listens carefully to the hero, says she understands everything and will try to carry it out. Tadashi thanks her. The hero says he has already made barrels for Merle to use. Tadashi is going to the blacksmith himself. The girl asks you to trust her. The hero approaches the blacksmith, steps into the tent, and asks Asiya if she made the nails. She says she did and that she has repaired the tools. While the hero is thinking, the girl says the tools will break if they run too fast. Tadashi believes melting iron and remaking it each time is inefficient. Restoring it with magic steel would be better, but they have almost no supplies. The hero summons Karura. When the creature appears, Tadashi asks for its legs. Karuru is glad to be called and gives the hero what he needs without any problems. Tadashi figures Kuru will lead them straight to the forest where the steel is, and tells the creature it must refill its water and follow the river. Flying along the river, the hero gathers water and catches a fish called the devil salmon. The action moves to the northern forest, where the hero starts chopping down trees toward the nearest mountain, tells Karura they must keep moving toward her, and she finally arrives. Dashi swings with all his might, shouts dig out, and strikes the mountain, sending many stones flying from it. The hero thinks this is a pretty good harvest, but calls the bag a hoax, then turns to Quirrell and says they're done and it's time to go back. They return to the village, and Asiya is glad to see them. The hero says he brought more supplies and fuel. Then he puts everything he brought down in front of her, and she is very surprised. She asks what is happening. Tadashi says he thought they were finished, and Asha says the hero brought too much. Asiya says she won't be able to handle so much material alone at the blacksmith and needs more help, so she asks Tadashi to sort it out, and the man isn't surprised by this. Tadashi works in a blacksmith shop and thinks everything is ready so he can start working as a carpenter. The hero brings the tool over to the Spike. Very pleased with him, she calls him amazing. The Spike uses the new tool with ease. Tadashi explains the tool is called a plane. The hero says he works pretty well. Spike says the screws the hero brought fit better than nails and make it more effective. The Beast Man tells everyone to do everything for the king, and they all agree. Tadashi believes they can make things with the thorn's power and is thinking about the next steps. Suddenly Asiya turns to Tadashi. Tadashi turns toward the hail. She says resting is tedious. He does not understand what she means. Asiya asks him to look back. She makes it clear that Iceland, who manages the whole project's progress, is already exhausted. Tadashi finally understands what Asia means. The hero realizes the corporate boldness he developed in his previous life backfired on his subordinates. Asiya asks the hero if she can take a break. He agrees. The hero sits casually sipping his drink when Kururu swims up to him with a shrimp in its teeth, and Tadashi offers to roast it for him. The hero begins to make a fire. A certain plant catches his eye. Dashi considers it and then gets an idea. Asha seems heroic. She asks what Tadashi has made this time. The hero replies it is liquid soap. He mixed coconut oil and baked seaweed with a little salt and will let the mixture ripen. The girl likes the soap the hero made. She thinks it smells great. Tadashi says that soap makes you want to take a bath right away. The scene shifts to a large bathtub, and the hero thinks that despite all the work he'd done, it was easier than he expected. A noise from behind makes the hero turn around. Aaron rushes up. The bathtub surprises her. The hero offers the girl a turn. Pressing the lever, the girl makes water pour out. Tadashi shows the Beastman ruler how the shower works. Eri likes it and enjoys standing in the shower. The girl asks how the device works. The hero says he filled a large tank with very hot water. Because of the height difference, the hot water flows naturally. Tadashi believes the key is knowing what you want to do, and then you can do almost anything. The hero says that's it for today. He suggests taking a relaxing bath. Since they're all in swimsuits, Tadashi says you can come in right away. Eren can't wait and is going to call the others. The hero slips into the water and relaxes, noticing the cypress scent and realizing he hasn't bathed in a long time and that this will bring him back to life. A sudden sound makes him turn his head, and he slips into a stupor as a crowd of girls without swimsuits walks to the bathroom. Tadashi asks where the baths are. Eren says she feels better without him, easily says she thought it was a good chance to get to know each other better. She claims the hero said it himself. Tadashi says he didn't mean it that way. Eren pulls off the hero's underwear and screams in embarrassment. Dashi tells him to stop taking her underwear. The girl says it is so boring. Eren pulls the towel off Isolane. The hero warns the girl she has gone too far and a little more will leave her without food. When Eren heard those words, he apologized immediately. Tadashi told her to wash up. A girl suddenly walked past the hero. It turned out to be Lisa. She apologizes to the hero for bothering him, asks him not to be angry with Eren, and says he has been in suspense the whole time. Tadashi says he's not angry with her because she's only a child. The hero thinks Lisa must have had a hard time. He hoped the people of the principality, the slave elves, and the beastmen had not been rude or laughed at them in any way, and Lisa said everything was fine and the commander there was a woman. Surprised to learn the National Army's commander was a woman, Tadashi thinks the principality was a frontier one. Lisa said they were not primarily interested in the Flounder Islands themselves and had occupied them to serve as a front line for attacking the Demon Kingdom from the other side. She says they had their own troops and fought desperately, but the enemy's female commander was ruthless. The girl says that although the commander was royal, she went to the front and killed several soldiers with a single blow. Lisa says that's when she lost her arm, and Dashi finds it a damn interesting story. He is sure Lisa has her blessings, but would not want to antagonize them if he could help. Lisa said the duchy also needed food for its army, so she readily agreed to become the duchy's treasury and supply food in exchange for a guarantee of her people's safety. Tadashi believes the Dutch might have wanted to disarm the elf army, impose heavy taxes on them, and make them slaves, which he finds disgusting. Lisa asks for permission to ask the hero a question. Tadashi says yes. Lisa leans close to the hero's ear. She asked how the hero could stand being so close to a girl. The hero looked at her in embarrassment, and she apologized, thinking her words had offended him. Lisa says she wonders how the man could hold himself back in the same pastel as Lady Isoline, let alone with someone like Lisa herself. Tadashi adds that the girl is decent and attractive. Lisa thanks Dashi for the compliment, says it's the first time a man has said that to her and that she's very flattered. The hero looks at her furtively, embarrassed. Then he gets an idea and tells Lisa to set boundaries, to draw a clear line, and she looks at him, puzzled. The hero says when the beer is ready, he plans to organize a festival to offer it to the gods and proposes arranging a Shinto wedding. Thinking about the wedding, the girl focuses on the Hatsuhana ceremony, and the hero asks whether it is really an elven custom. Lisa explains that when girls reach a certain age, they give flowers to the man of their dreams on the day of the spring festival, and when a man receives them, the marriage is considered concluded. Lisa says that under occupation, they lacked the freedom of action they later fought for to secure the right to live. From Lisa's words, the hero understood it was their custom to propose to a woman. Tadashi thinks Iceland is so active because of that custom. Lisa asks what kind of wedding ceremony the hero wants, and Tadashi replies that she should wear a wedding cake, a gorgeous outfit, and exchange rings, which Lisa calls a pretty big celebration. Daji believes that's true, and if he and Iceland get engaged, they will need wedding dresses, make rings, and choose the cake ingredients. The hero considers it, then he and Lisa hear a voice behind them and turn to see Eren, who asks whether Lisa is alone with the king, and Lisa says Tadashi will marry them all. When they heard that, all the girls turned to the hero. Tadashi says he never said he would marry all of them. Realizing no one is likely to listen to him now, he expects the fuss to start again. The next day, the hero sets a new goal to prepare for the wedding ceremony. Tadashi has already asked the men to brew the alcohol and entrusted the bride's dress to seamstress Lola. The hero knows he must handle the wedding rings and the cake, but still does not know what to make the cake from or where to find precious stones. Isiah suddenly calls to him, screaming that there's been trouble. The hero offers the girl a short break. Aser says now is no time to rest. The girl asks the hero to look at what happened. He says they're diamonds, rubies, even sapphires. She explains they mixed with the magical minerals he had. Tadashi remembers bringing the material to the blacksmith. The idea that magic minerals didn't mix with anything turned out to be wrong. Tadashi says at least Asha found them, or he would have been worried about the rings. The girl turns to the hero and asks if he can trust her to make the rings. Tadashi agrees immediately, placing them in her care, and Asiya thanks him for his trust and promises to make them with a craftsman's pride. Convinced the ring problem is solved, Tadashi thinks they can move on to the cake and worries they have no milk or eggs and where to find the necessary cattle. Confused, the hero stands as Kurururu suddenly flies up behind him. Tadashi asks what Tom needs. The creature puts the hero on its back and carries him somewhere. Tadashi asks the animal where he's taking it anyway. They approach the forest. The hero asks Kurururu if going deep into the forest is dangerous. The animal stops. Tadashi warns they've gone too far into the forest. Karuru begins to growl. The hero is confused but suddenly senses a presence in that direction. Fear shows on his face. A huge number of cows and roosters stand in front of him. Tadashi sits on the Karura and calls out to the animals. Tadashi offers to feed them. The beast ignores Dashi's suggestion. Then Kururo intervenes, barking furiously at them. All the animals look at him with fear. Dashi treats the wild animals like little ones and thinks they need to be tamed. The hero repeats his offer, saying he will show them a place where the food and water taste better, and they will give him eggs and milk. Kuru growls at the beasts again, and they become frightened but obedient, ready to follow Dashi. Sitting on the Kurururu and leading the animals behind him, the hero says it's easy to tame if you try, and the Kurururu growls in agreement. Returning to the village, the hero believes agriculture is a human activity and that cattle breeding clearly belongs to it. Aaron and Isoline suddenly approach the hero. Isoline says she heard the hero will hold the first flower ceremony and brought some seeds. Then something startles her, and she asks what it is. The hero thanks Eyes in line for the seeds, then explains the cowshed and chicken coop are just right for them, and suggests sowing flower seeds as soon as possible. Aaron tells Isoline the chickens and cows look like they have huge chunks of meat. Isoline replies they are a devilish cow and a devilish chicken, and that they are real animals. Aaron asks if demonic cows and chickens can be tamed, and Iceland says no, explaining that neither humans nor magical creatures can be tamed. Aaron points to the picture ahead. Tadashi pats the demonic chicken's head and tells her it's time to lay delicious eggs for them. The chicken has tears in her eyes. Aaron says the demonic beast is crying. Tadashi realizes the demonic monsters from old legends were guarded by Fenrir. Eileen explains they were subjugated rather than tamed. Aaron considers it, then asks whether having demonic beasts counts as a combat capability. Isolane doesn't understand what she is talking about. Aaron says they have more than 30 terrifying demonic animals, so if the princely army comes here, the animals will be available if needed. Having finally understood the ruler of the beastmen, Eilun warns they must stay vigilant. The hero suddenly calls Aaron and Iceland over, asking them to take the eggs and milk, and saying there are many and everything looks delicious. The girls stand in a stupor. Dashi says if they try to tame demonic beasts, it will be easier for them later, and the girls know they are completely untamed. Lola and Asha arrive and call Tadashi. Lola reveals she made an outfit for the wedding ceremony and says the wedding dress turned out well. Tadashi says he never doubted she could handle it. Asiya turns to him and says she got a sapphire for an engagement ring. The hero likes the ring and says he's glad he relied on her. The girls are happy. Lola says we must start mass production right away. Asiya adds she needs to make rings that fit the required sizes. The hero steps in and says they must taste the bread first, which surprises the girls, and Maru explains she wanted to test the pastries, so she tried them on bread. She brings a loaf of freshly baked bread. Overall, it looks very appetizing. Then the hero turns inward and says there is more. He brings out the first batch of alcohol. Lua says she mistook it for raw ale. The beer is cold and tastes delicious to her. Tadashi says light beer is better served cold. It is cooled by the magic of life. Asiya says this alcohol is very strong, while Tadashi thinks that at last the world's heavenly protection and magic are being stripped away, and the girls drink beer with bread. The hero explains simple magic can cool or heat food, but the magic of life makes cooking effortless. Seeing the stove worked, the hero decides to bake a cake and make fresh cream and butter. Here, Maru turns to Tadashi. Claiming the hero is kind to everyone, she doubts someone like her could ever get married. The hero is in complete shock and does not remember anyone saying that. Tadashi asks whether the girl wants to marry him, but Maru says she did not mean that, and the girl reveals she has a child and asks whether the hero objects. At 28, Tadashi falls into a stupor, a half-man with a child. Cornell, her husband, had died earlier in the war with the principality. The girl says she heard the hero's disapproval, but ends up proud of her husband. She tells Dashi they should remember the great brave beast man. He says he heard the man was great at the last moment. A little girl runs into the room. The hero asks if she is really Maru's daughter. The girl answers yes and says her name is Petia, then she hugs her mother. The hero remembers that Maru's husband died in the war. The mother and her little child were left alone. He says she will soon remarry, even though her husband was so handsome. The girl replies that if she marries the gentleman who saved the island, her husband will be happy, and she will be obliged to raise her daughter and have more children. The hero picks up a glass from the table. Tadashi gulps down the drink, then says he realized they needed to get married, and turns to Pettia to tell her she can call him daddy. She accepts the hero's offer, and Maru thanks him for allowing her daughter to call him father. The hero says that after the ceremony the girl may call him by his first name, and she agrees. Convinced he did the right thing, Tadashi says the wedding day is approaching, and preparations are complete, and the village's 100 residents form a small town. Tadashi says they offer a wide variety of dishes, like wild vegetable salad, baked bread, spicy seafood soup, tenderloin steak, and wedding peach cake. Exiled suddenly calls to the hero, who turns to find a crowd of girls in wedding dresses behind him saying they are ready, and Tadashi looks on in surprise and embarrassment. He realizes he didn't check the day before how many people would come, and he never expected to marry all 7. Exiled asks the hero if something is wrong, and Tadashi says no, while privately feeling that marrying everyone at once would not be ethical, yet he accepts it as the island's custom. Bari says Tadashi is very generous anyway, and she adds that if the hero deepens his friendship with someone he will still get married no matter who it is, leaving Tadashi looking confused. He insists that's not true and asks people not to say he could marry anyone. The girls say those rumors are spreading. The hero feels they've come a long way by helping each other, and he's still glad it was necessary. Exiled proposes exchanging vows. The hero agrees, but wants to seek the deity's blessing first and then eat. Suddenly, a bright light appears from somewhere. The gods appear before the heroes. Kronos, the god of agriculture, greets the hero and says he appears to be in perfect health. Vulcan, the god of blacksmithing, offers him a drink. Surprised, the girls look at the gods, and Tadashi agrees with Vulcan, saying that thanks to them he has more connections. Vulcan says he's been looking forward to this day and likes everything. The gods taste the alcohol Tadashi prepared. He tries it first and says the drink is just fine. Kronos says the bark and manners are terrible, and Vulcan replies that the drinking is low. Then their eyes meet and someone calls out to the hero. She asks who the two are, and Tadashi says they are deities because he placed an offering on the altar and they came to dine. The girl screams that this is utterly unnatural, and the hero realizes another mess has happened. The girls are surprised to find that the deities have arrived. The hero knows that others find deities descending to earth unusual and explains that if an offering is made, the deities will come themselves to taste it. The girls stare at Tadashi, stunned. Tadashi realizes they understood little. Suddenly, Kronos turns his attention to the newly arrived gods. He tells Mia and Helk Barretts it is indecent to come in with such a face because Tadashi tried his best to cook. Mia, the goddess of wisdom, says Kronos at least chose whether to come, and Helkibara, the god of heroism, says they have a rule against supporting specific revivals. Heranos says the god of heroism is getting stubborn again and asks whether the armor has made him cruel, while Helkibars bristles and says he does not care. Two gods clash. Tadashi steps in to settle the dispute. The hero argues the gods work hard and should be fed. The god of heroism tastes the first course and savors its rich flavor. Tadashi says it is a soup made from seaweed and other seafood. Kronos says the patron saint of agriculture often awards Tadashi's dishes 7 stars. Mia looks at the beefsteak soup and says that in their day, such exquisite offerings from the faithful are impressive. Kronos calls the goddess of healing and tells her they have done a lot for them, so she should come and taste it. Alicia, the goddess of healing, says she did nothing. Tadashi tells her they are truly grateful for the herb. The goddess says the hero did all of this by himself. When he insists, she agrees. Tadashi is surprised the goddess suddenly started eating meat. Alicia eating meat surprised him. Suddenly, Eileen turns to the goddess of healing. She says she always takes care of them. Elijah looks surprised. Exiled asks if the goddess is worried. The goddess says no and adds that Exiled believes in her. She asks the elf to focus on this, and Exiled is very glad to hear that from the goddess of healing. Kronos asks Tadashi whether he is called the monster god Oda. The hero repeats the question and Kronos says this god also cares for magical beasts. Tadashi says Kuru came to bring Mr. Oda and that he has completely forgotten about it. Striking the dragon figurine, the monster god Mr. Odd appears before him. Tadashi asks Kronos what Mr. Odd will eat. Kronos answers that Mr. Odd eats everything and just needs more. The hero gives Odd his portion. He tastes it carefully at first, then finishes every last drop. This surprises the hero. Tadashi asks Mara if she wants more, and she says yes. Vulcan tells the hero they've run out of booze and asks him to fetch another barrel. The hero says everything will be fine now. The gods feast and enjoy themselves. Tadashi tells Kronos it would be worth holding a wedding while everyone is gathered, and the god replies that he is simply happy. The hero says they must make sure Mr. Kronos and the others who care for them are married. Kronos claims to be the god of agriculture, promises them a rich harvest and many descendants, and says he is fit to be the rule bog who can be trusted to witness the marriage. Kronos begins the ceremony, and Tadashi thinks it's a good thing Mr. Kronos isn't drunk. The wedding ceremony begins. The hero explains an island custom called the ceremony of the first flower. This is the first time the islanders have seen a wedding. Tadashi tells Kronso that they will now say the oath and exchange wedding rings and lily flowers. Kronos said polygamy often happens in their world, but he had never seen a wedding like this before, and Kronos said it was very similar to Tadashi, which surprised Tadashi. Kronos suggests they say the oath in the temple, and the hero agrees. At that moment, someone calls out to him. His 7 brides asked him to accept their flowers. Embarrassed, the hero asks to approach each one separately. He places an engagement ring on each girl in turn, and they are all delighted. Kronos says it's a truly happy marriage, blesses future descendants with prosperity, and the hero thanks him for this. Kronos scolds the other gods for not bringing any gift to the wedding ceremony for Tadashi and the others. Vulcan doesn't understand what kind of gift they were supposed to prepare. Pronto says this could, for example, be a new star of heavenly patronage. Mia says the god of agriculture is talking nonsense. Chrono accuses her of stinginess, and she replies that giving Tadashi a gift would disrupt the order of the earthly world. Alicia agrees with Chrono. She offers each hero's bride a star. Iceland, hearing this, is overjoyed. Mia says she won't accept those gifts. Chronos points out she is the only one who hasn't tried the offerings. Mia turns to Tadashi. She says she ordered the wisest merchants among her followers to be brought here. The hero thanks her for the gift and thinks the traders from the border territories will indeed come. Eren appears. Tadashi asks if she received a gift. She confirms she did and says it came from Mr. Hulk Barris's hero deity. The hero says he will not arrange a wedding with Eren. She says his desires have turned obscene, and he refuses in every possible way. She says she's joking, and it's too soon for her to see the hero that way, but she'll think about it later whether she likes it or not. Dashi realizes he hasn't mentioned it yet, and that having 7 wives will be difficult. Suddenly he hears a hail. Iceland says she is glad she could marry him. The other girls say they are happy too. The hero says he is as happy as they are, and thinks that in his previous life, he never imagined getting married. The hero wondered what would happen if he were left alone forever. In this world, unlike his own, he is not alone. The girl whispers that it is amazing the king can make the gods descend to earth, but others say this is not surprising since eyes align. The others are also blessed, and this is a legend. People call Dashi the most important king acknowledged by the gods. The girls say he also cooks delicious food, so the gods' visit is justified. Dashi believes the village will soon belong to no one and become divine, and he thinks it is better to cultivate these lands than to live in uncertainty. That was how Tadashi became known as the king of food. The wedding ceremony went on all night. Iceland suggests that all the women line up from smallest to largest bust. Lisa asks the girl whether her small breasts are a problem and whether she has any rivals here, then says people have different tastes and that Tadashi, for example, would not accept that. Thinking the girls are arguing about the order and cannot agree, the hero says everyone is tired today and it's time to go to bed. The girls flatly refuse to go to bed. Maru suddenly turns to Tadashi and asks if the hero had any experience. The hero, confused, asks what she is talking about. She warns that no one else has experience, so problems could arise, and the hero feels overwhelmed by her persuasive power. When Dashi suggests Mara tell everyone about it, the girl says it's a good offer and that she needs a partner for visual learning, while the hero stares in a daze and then clarifies again. Tadashi says it's a shame and that even if another girl could, there would never be one like her. Maru says she could offer a ship, notes the girl is also a half-beast and about his age, and the hero thinks Maru wants to bring them together. Spike says she can take charge of the process, and the hero can simply assume she will not be there. The hero sees it as a compromise and agrees. Maru asks him not to overdo things and to rely on her, and Spike says it's nice to meet him. Morning arrives, and the hero turns to Maru to ask about her plan. The girl asks to speak. Tadashi lets her. She says everything is fine, but it's almost too good. Maru says the test worked, and now Tadashi is in danger. The hero doesn't understand what she means. Maru warns the hero he is putting himself in danger, and that if he relaxes, his partner can kill him. Tadashi believes the god of agriculture granted her 7-star physical strength. Now he realizes he must go to the royal garden, one way or another. Migrants from the Kanbar archipelago flooded into the village of the descendant gods. The Tadashi kingdom's population continues to grow rapidly, and Frontrunner County became aware of this sudden prosperity. The scene moves to the capital of Frontrunner Century County. Founded by 100 soldiers and a single brave man, the county later grew into a state with a large army. Matilda von Frontrunner is the only daughter of the ruler of Frontrunner Counties, SDR. She sits at a table surrounded by documents, bored of the reports, but unable to do anything because her father entrusted them to her. Lost in thought, the girl sits as a man named Ajahn von Fontaine enters the room, turns to her, and she looks up. He says he came with a report on disturbing activity in the Kanbar archipelago, and the girl asks if there is an important base for the next offensive and what is happening there in general. Ochin says the stories show they cannot meet the needs of even half the archipelago's inhabitants. He says high taxes may force everyone to leave. They need to address the problem sooner. Matilda tells them to leave. The man wants to object, but the girl asks him to summon the commander-in-chief to her. Ajahn says people should not show disrespect to someone like him. OJN repeats that people are still in the country and that the commander-in-chief should think carefully. The girl replies that the counterattack plan is getting closer and there is no need to investigate the situation on the island. Matilda apologizes to Ajahn for being too short-tempered, then she looks out the window at the city. The girl believes victory over the Magic King is within their grasp now. A pleasant breeze brushes her. Matilda thinks they could lose the country if they miss the chance to attack now. Convinced they will launch an attack and win, the girl sees only this road and thinks there is no other. The scene moves to the fields of Divine Village, where Tadashi works and thinks more than 5,000 migrants from the island have already arrived, and their numbers grow every day. He thinks they have many territories, but no matter how many fields are expanded, it is still not enough. Suddenly, a voice calls out to the hero. Isolane rode Kururu. She shouted that there was trouble. The hero asked what had happened. Isolane says new applicants for resettlement have arrived. The hero asks why that is a problem. The girl explains that crowds of dwarves and cat demons are arriving one by one, and that this is a very important matter. A girl suddenly appears on Kuru, and Tadashi asks Iceland to introduce them. The girl fully reveals herself and asks whether the hero is the same person as Dashi Farmer, the king of this country. After the hero asks who the girl is, Iceland interrupts and accuses him of being a traitor and the leader of the cat demon caravan. The girl says she is glad to meet them and introduces herself as Shinku, the head of the Katir's trading caravan. Alia says that's an unusual name for a trading caravan. The hero explains that cat demons are part of the cat race. Shinku says this helps customers remember. Their trademark is everyone's favorite cat with its ears and tail. The girl asks whether the hero has been reborn. She believes the goddess Mia introduced believers to him and says the hero lit up the area and instantly built a village and plowed a field, so she thought he was reborn. Shinku asks to scout the area for the future, and the hero agrees, adding that he needs to meet with the dwarf people. Iceland volunteers to take on part of the work and will accompany Sinka while the hero meets the dwarves, and Tadashi agrees and says he relies on the girl. The hero jumps onto Kurora, says the gas won't wait, and rides to meet the dwarves. Arriving, the hero finally sees dwarves ahead as he comes closer, and one of them calls out asking if he is the king of Tadashi, which the hero confirms before asking if that dwarf is the group's leader. The dwarf answers yes, saying he hails from the large mines of the Principality of Frontrin. Overin is his name, and he serves as the head of the gnome group. Ashi said they have extra land so the dwarves can live with them. He will produce enough trees and food so the dwarves can live in the mountains near the village mines. The hero points out that in addition to magic ore, you can find jewelry in the mountains. Overnon asks whether Tadashi can give them such important information. The hero replies that this was one of Mr. Barkin's instructions, so he thinks he can trust him. Upon hearing this, the dwarf burst into tears of happiness, called the hero very generous, and now swears that both his hands will serve King Tadashi for the rest of his life, while the hero says the dwarf is slightly exaggerating. Tadashi holds out his hand and offers to go to the mines right away, saying he and the dwarves are now comrades in arms, and the dwarf takes his hand and promises to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. The hero expects a northern mining village owned by Oberon and the other dwarves and plans to supply them with the necessary goods. In the south, on the island of Kanbar, 1,000 settlers will arrive. Cat demons have begun preparing an international trading port. They also decided to build a fort along the river at the center of each town to serve as the kingdom's base. Shinku says the trade is going as planned and notes that magic iron and magic steel are banned from export, and Tadashi wants to know why they cannot be taken out. The girl explains it is because the county is preparing for war. Weapons made from magical iron and steel, she says, will give their country an advantage. Isolane asks what kind of war with the county Sinkyu is talking about. The girl replies that if they allow so many people to arrive, it will be an actual declaration of war. Isolane says she and her people will leave the island once they pay off their debts, and that the territory was meant for those who cannot live in the principality, so the principality will not notice anything. Shinku identifies the girl as Tunuive. He explains that Ganbar Island's inhabitants have almost vanished and are still leaving the island. She agrees that no one will notice because the county's top brass are idiots. She will still prepare a counterattack strategy that considers the various possibilities. Tadashi says he relies on her because he knows nothing about military affairs. Shinku says he can count on her. Overan says the dwarves will also do their best for the king. Isolane says the sea elves and the island demi-humans will not act like they did last time. Shinku gives the girl a mild warning, saying that if they are attacked they will flee to the nearest fishing village. Eren cheers her up, saying they have Eren herself to be brave. Shinku sarcastically tells Eren he wants to hear her plan. The hero tries to separate them. Shinku adds that even if the Count's army is strong, a disciplined attack should help them, and he says he looks forward to hearing from both of them. She says the outcome will depend on Tadashi's strength, and the hero asks what she means. The girl explains his divine power came from heaven. Shinku has heard this power can purify all these lands. The hero says he doubts he has fully mastered it, so his strength is unlikely to be enough for a fight. Shinku turns to Tadashi and asks him not to be so biased, saying the hero's power is a weapon that enriched these lands, and the hero looks at her in a daze. Tadashi says he'll think it over, knows he's ready to use all his strength to protect his loved ones, and as king, must protect his people. The scene shifts to Frontrunner County at Century Palace. Matilda screams in confusion because a large mine that will sustain their country has started operating. They tell her that workers are disappearing one by one. She has no idea why. She knows that if they stop making weapons, their army will collapse. Suddenly, Ajin enters and apologizes, handing Matilda some items. She asks what they are, and he explains he brought them because they relate to what happened. Ujian explains that these mushrooms are gathered at the border of Gambol Island, and notes that they do not grow in such numbers on their island, while the girl tastes one and says she does not understand what he means. Aten says people have fled to more fertile areas. The girl says nothing compares to the land of dreams. Oceans reports that the investigation found that a new kingdom has appeared on the border. Matilda says she has heard that the border areas have become uninhabitable and does not believe the disappeared citizens left the country to flee abroad. Annoyed that they acted before the demonic kingdom's counterattack, she asks who can handle the case, and suddenly a voice comes from behind the door. It turned out to be Graham, a 4-star colonel general of the army of the Heavenly Stars and the wielder of a magic sword, who asks for permission to destroy the kingdom. The girl asks Ojien whether he should be allowed to do this. The man replies with a sharp refusal. He asks Matilda to remember his work on Kanbar Island and says his squad of 100 men attacked the beastmen without permission and burned an entire village. The girl says she is busy with preparations and sees no problem if he can replace her, while the criminal general says she should have realized this much earlier. Matilda is adamant and says she has decided to rely on Graham's squad, while Ajin objects and looks at her in shock. She tells Graham not to let her down this time, and he promises to meet her expectations. Graham leads his squad toward the island. A teammate says the rumors are true. Graham confirms that all the elves, beastmen, and similar creatures have gone to the border territories. He warns that trying to escape from them would be a huge mistake. The man intends to profit again. Graham orders his subordinates to loot as much as possible and takes on the job of gathering intelligence in enemy territory. The soldiers obey. He plans to have some fun after work. The squad moves into the village and finds it deserted. A soldier says the island elves and beastmen have gone to an unknown destination. A sudden sound comes from the side. Demonic beasts charge toward them. The squad stands frozen in shock. Soldiers shout that they must disperse. He says one of the warriors is like a simple bird pecking at his hand. Graham fights off the beasts with all his strength, yelling to the soldiers to stay alert, warning that these are not ordinary animals but demonic cows and chickens ranked A, and ordering them to attack the 5. Graham finds these demonic animals unusually aggressive and admits he was too careless, so he should be more cautious in these territories. Shinku, Eren, and Tadashi watch the painting from the bushes. Shinku says using demonic animals reduces the number of soldiers, just as Eren said. Shinku asks Eren why she has been silent for so long. Suddenly, Eren asks Tadashi to leave the soldiers with Shinku. The hero asks whether she plans to attack them. Eren says they burned her village, she will not forgive them and wants to kill them. Tadashi tries to calm her, but she remains determined. It must be done now or never, she says. The girl asks the hero to leave quickly. Tadashi senses an attack is imminent. She rushes into battle, thanking the hero for letting her attack. A squad of beastmen charges at the enemies. Beastmen move into battle. Graham turns and sees them, and is about to run when someone calls out to him. The beastman's ruler stands before him. The man recognizes her. She attacks him at once. Graham is taken aback by her strange sword. The man says that because Eren fights with a magic sword, she has good taste. Filled with hatred for the enemy, the girl is sure this is the man who set the village on fire. Suddenly, Graham grins. The man says Eren will die in flames this time, casts a sulfuric acid spell on his sword, attacks the girl, and her dodge leaves him in a stupor. Graham can't understand how she escaped. The girl says he will no longer insult her. Eren says she became a 4-star warrior thanks to Tadashi. Graham wonders why the girl remains unharmed by the sulfuric acid spell. Eren attacks him again. Delivering blow after blow, she breaks the opponent's sword and then pierces his chest with her blade. Pressing her sword to her chest, the girl says the gram is for Cornell. The man looks at Eren with horror in his eyes and starts coughing. Clenching her teeth, the girl screams that Graham is here and will leave this world. The man turns to Eren and hurls his latest insult at her. She pulls a sword out of her body. Confused, she stands. Dash comes up behind her and asks if Eren is okay. The girl turns to the hero and says she managed to do it. The hero looks at her and says she really did it, then adds that this battle is for them. The scene moves to the Principality of Frontrunner, Century Castle. Matilda learns Graham's squad was defeated, but refuses to believe Graham himself, the wielder of the demonic sword, fell. Ajin says that is exactly what happened. He says the squad was attacked by demonic beasts and beastmen, according to the soldiers who miraculously escaped. The girl asks again. She asks whether the neighboring kingdom is using demonic beasts. Ajin admits they underestimated their opponents. The girl becomes annoyed. Still, she says it's important information right now. Ajin says they collect information on migrants and traffickers who travel abroad. A letter arrived from the neighboring Tadashi kingdom. Matilda opens the letter. Ajin says they want to discuss several matters with representatives of the principality, including the issue of captured soldiers. Matilda says she'll be there to go over everything. Ojin asks if she can handle it herself. As commander of the detachment, she says she cannot abandon the Order's members who are held captive. Surprised, Ajin looks at her and says he will make the necessary preparations. The girl says the glorious Order of the Heavenly Star was cruelly defeated by beasts and beastmen, and it was a mistake to underestimate the situation and leave it to fate. Ajin urges Matilda to avoid rash actions and not repeat her mistakes, and Matilda replies she is no longer a child to be lectured. The girl clenches her fists, but Ajinabe says a leader should sometimes pause and assess the situation. Matilda replies that they cannot wait and that they are ready to sail to the Kambala Islands with 2,000 knights and 20,000 legionnaires as planned. The girl says she will spend 1,000 nights abroad. Ajin says he will accompany her to the negotiations. She agrees. The group arrives on the island, wonders what kind of port the Tadashi kingdom is building, and enters the dock. Matilda can't figure out where the money came from. Ajin says they are backed by the Shinku Trading Company and Cadier's Company, with the blessing of the God of Wisdom. Matilda says she sees no warships or soldiers, and that, for all their wealth, they have little military power. Ojin suggests they may be trying to keep their capabilities secret. Munchin warns that powerful demonic beasts from the borderlands are allied with the Tadashi kingdom, and he says he has already told Matilda many times not to let her guard down. She says she already knows, then a greeting comes from behind, and Tadashi appears, asking whether they are representatives of the principality. When the girl asks who they are, the hero replies that he is Tadashi Ono, a farmer by trade and also the country's king. The girl is stunned that a mere mortal could cause so much chaos. Ajin whispers to Matilda and points at the hero's hand. Tadashi tells her he has 9 blessing stars on his hand. He says people often tell him this is unusual. He says he has 7 stars in agriculture, blacksmithing, and heroism. The girl doubts the hero really has that many stars, and when Ajin insists she must believe it, Matilda is outraged and says the man expects her to accept it as a joke about having so many stars. Ajin says it is impossible to build such a rich country in the God-forsaken frontier. If the hero received the blessing of the god of agriculture, that explains it. Matilda is angry. Tadashi remembers the peace talks. Shinku says their request is simple. They will return the captured knights and forgive the invasion of their lands. In return, the principality will recognize their existence and not interfere in their lives. Matilda calls it arrogance and says the heroes took 10,000 of their people, and Shinku taunts the girl, saying this is what happens when the principality is in a bad state. Tadashi says the principality, Matilda rules, needs food. He offers to sell it cheaper via trade routes. Matilda refuses, and the hero asks what they need. Matilda replies that her first priority is to bring back her people and the artisans, and she also demands that the beastmen and elves be returned to the island. The dwarf leader says they came to Tadashi willingly, so they can choose who to serve. The elves snuggle up to Tadashi. They claim to be Dashi's wives and will obey only him. Aaron says Matilda will no longer rule them. Matilda says they have a legitimate ruler and doesn't care what they decide, so she will not accept the offer and instead offers to make them a vassal state in exchange for protecting them from the demon lord. Aaron is outraged and says they cannot accept those terms because the principality has long failed to meet its obligations. Matilda replies that if they refuse her offer, she will simply go home. Back in the kingdom, Matilda and Ajin return. Ajin starts to speak, but Matilda cuts him off, says everything is fine and even better than it could have been, and insists they must immediately arrange to ferry the army to Kamba Island. The girl says they will attack the Tadashi kingdom now, and Ajin, shocked, asks whether they will use military force to counterattack the demon kingdom. He says they do not know the Tadashi kingdom's true military strength. Ajin says there is no information, and starting a war in that situation would violate military principles. The girl says that's why they will launch a surprise attack. Matilda says the enemy already numbers at least 10,000 demonic beasts, and they cannot wait for them to grow stronger. Matilda says they will fight both the demon kingdom and the Tadashi kingdom at the same time. These are not games, but they will do it anyway. She asks Ajin if he has seen those fertile lands, and says that if things go well, they can easily double their forces and defeat the demon king's army. Ajin asks whether Matilda plans to rely on luck for her principality's survival. Matilda replies that their principality is so threatened it will not survive unless they take risks. She announces that, as commander-in-chief of the principality's army, commander of the government's knights and the prince's representative, she orders a surprise attack on the Tadashi kingdom. Matilda warns that if they do not challenge them, their situation on these lands will worsen. Ajin replies that he understood her and will carry out the order out of respect. On Kanbar Island, a soldier tells Ojian they have repelled the demonic beasts, and Ojian says it was difficult. Ultimately, many beasts were defeated. No matter how strong the demonic beasts were, they could not defeat an army of 20,000. Ocean decides it is time to end Lady Matilda's invasion of the port, tells a soldier to take a ship to Madame Matilda, and the soldier carries out the order. Ajin believes there is plenty of food in the city and supplies are still arriving, so we can only hope the girl does not make the wrong decision in the future. Ajin tells Matilda that the city's coastline is fully occupied and the demonic creature's attack has been repelled. The girl says she expected nothing less from him. It will be a great victory, she says. Ojian watches her. Then he suggests stopping there. The girl doesn't understand what the man is saying. Ajin says they met no resistance except from demonic beasts. Most residents were likely evacuated inland, he believes. The enemies expected them to launch a surprise attack, he adds. Matilda realizes even Ojian could not carry out a surprise attack. The man says the report shows a castle has been built on the River of Sorrow. He thinks the enemy base is waiting for them there, and a trap may be set. The girl says Tadashi and the others are there too. She wants to attack immediately. Bajin tries to contradict her. Matilda asks the man if he hasn't yet realized that the territory's most precious treasure is that man. The girl says the fertile fields were made possible by him, so she wants him captured alive. Ajin says it's too dangerous because he holds all 9 stars of blessing. Matilda points out that even if they defeat his blessing, they lack the farming blessing, and their hero blessing is only 1 star, so their military power is limited. The girl vows to stay vigilant and fight with all her strength. Ocean says he will go at once to negotiate with King Tadashi. According to him, they could win now, but if they use their strength to occupy these fertile lands, they will not win the war against the Demon King. Matilda says Ajin is talking nonsense because Ajin himself warned earlier that the place has a huge number of traps, so he cannot go alone, and the man says he will die if he does. He believes that if the main army is dealt a crushing blow, the principality will fall. The girl objects, saying there might be no traps at all. Ajin interrupts her and says that's not true and that she thinks what she wants to do is not worth it. She shouts at him, accusing him of acting like a mentor. She warns that setting traps will create countless enemies, but Ajin interrupts and says that is exactly what he wants, and the girl suddenly shouts his name. Lady Matilda says a small number of soldiers will be enough to hold the occupied territories, plans to use the entire Principality army to destroy the river castle, and insists this is her final decision, while Ajin is horrified and tries to stop her. The Principality's army launched a fierce attack. The hero knew this would happen because of their past actions, but only a few people remained at the port and could not evacuate quickly. Hoping the prediction won't come true, Tadashi watches as Eren suddenly flies to him on Kura and reports 200,000 enemies and about 3,000 soldiers while ships approach. All the ships have left the island. Shinku, who sold information about the Principality's army to the heroes, carefully planned a strategy. There is no guarantee the heroes will win, and Tadashi thinks the so-called royal castle is really just a wall of magical steel around the fort. Shinku suddenly approaches Tadashi and asks what he is doing. Tadashi tells her she used to say he could do it. He thought for a long time about how he could protect everyone. He knows he cannot allow the Principality to destroy the village, the city, the country, and everything he built. From now on, he will do everything he can. Shinku gives the hero an approving look, then she turns to Tadashi and steps closer. Kissing the hero, the girl pulls away and says that if he wins the war, she will agree to marry him. Embarrassed, the hero looks at her and says she has always wanted this. The girl says this is the right place. Tadashi says the confession should have come before the kiss. She replies that this will not work for the hero. If you reveal the information first, the hero will say no. The hero smiles, thanks the girl for making him feel better, and says she even joked about it. Shinku confirms that was exactly the case, so the hero gathers his thoughts and realizes he has come this far because of the friends he has made over many years in this world. The hero is very close to the elf eyes Align, the beastman Eren, the dwarf Overon, the catgirl Sinku, and Fenrir Karuru. He suddenly remembers Kronos' words that a river of mourning flows here, poisoned by a deadly toxin, and that with the blessing of agriculture, the hero can purify both water and soil. The hero remembers receiving a blessing that let him purify a river so poisoned no one could live there, and now he dips his hand into the water to cleanse it with that power. The scene shifts to the enemy ship's cabin. Ajin and Matilda hear screams and run out of the cabin. The girl asks what is happening and is told the hull keeps getting torn open. A huge fish jumps onto the deck. Matilda asks Ajin what kind of mysterious monster fish it is. Ajin says it is a ferocious demonic fish called the devil salmon that lives in poisoned rivers. The girl says she looks like a figure from legend. Matilda asks why she came here. Ajin suggests it might be Tadashi's power. He then begins to worry about his army after a realization hits him.